All right, sound check, sound check. Calling to Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach, can you hear us? Okay. So,
which one is that? It's on the outside turn around.
So watch parties, just to give you a heads up, there's about a 30-second delay from communication from stage to live. All right, Myrtle Beach is loud and clear. Myrtle Beach, I'm going to try the other microphones just to double check. Greenville will be with you in just a second. All right, sound check 2, sound check 2. Myrtle Beach, sound check. Myrtle Beach, can you hear me on this mic? And Myrtle Beach, can you also try the chat? What'd you get, Courtney? Sampler series? Oh, okay. All right, so Neil, thank you. I'm going to check the other mics really quickly. All right, he's going to log out and log back in to do the chat feature. Greenville, can you hear us? All right, so we can see your chat, Greenville. Can you just confirm that you can hear the sound and audio? Okay, great. Natalie can hear. I'm going to try the other lapel mic, Natalie. Give me just 1 second. Greenville, can you hear me? Greenville, panel mic number 2. Okay, great. Okay, Natalie can hear. All right, I'm going to try the handheld mics real fast for sound checks. Sound check 3, sound check 3. Little River and Greenville, can you hear us? Little River, Greenville. But thank you for the feedback from the audience. We always appreciate good feedback. He's saying, yeah, I can hear you, yeah. Courtney, you have anything in the chat from? Not yet, okay. Okay. Okay, I've got 2 more to try. Any from Myrtle Beach? Myrtle Beach, can you hear the new mic? There is not. Myrtle Beach, call in Myrtle Beach. Can you hear us? Nothing from Myrtle Beach? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and try the other mic real fast. Handheld number 2. Greenville, Myrtle Beach, can you hear me? Greenville, Myrtle Beach, handheld number 2. Okay. I know, 30 seconds does feel like a long time. All right, last mic check. Greenville, Little River. Can you hear us? Greenville, Little River. Last mic check. Greenville, Little River. Can you hear us?
a sound check real quick to see if this distance is good. Is that
Want me
good?
to have her push it up? Courtney?
Courtney, let's do a sound check if this angle is good of the microphone.
Good.
Yes? Okay, excellent.
Okay. To go off. Good morning. Just to let you know, we do have coffee in the cafe and some pastries and some fruit if you would like anything. The cafe is directly behind me in those double doors. So please help yourself if you would like any coffee or pastries or fruit. Good morning. If we can have panel number one report to the stage. Panel number one, if you will report to the stage. Also, a quick housekeeping announcement. We do have restrooms in the back of the building directly to my right, and those are handicap accessible. So those are the restrooms we would love for you to utilize during the event.
1, 2, 3, check. Testing. Does that sound good?
Just make sure it's on. I think they're off right now. They are off. Yep.
So is that working?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good. So sorry. Wait, Deanna Parrish.
Another sound check like this. Should I just have the handheld? I'm wondering.
I guess you put this on the other side since I'll be looking at you.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Sound check for the lavaliers. I'm going to move my head left and right. Would it be better to have the handheld? Question mark.
He's joking.
Because I do move a lot. Sound check on the handheld. Is this good? This distance from my mouth? Good.
Good morning, everybody. How is everybody doing? Good, good. That's what we want to hear from the Parkinson's community because you know what? We're here to beat Parkinson's. We're not going to let it beat us. I am Deanna Parrish. I am the Senior Advancement Director for the Carolinas chapter of the Parkinson's Foundation. And I also am a care partner. For 19 years, my husband and I have been living with Parkinson's disease, and you know what? We're beating it. We're beating it. So, I'm going to talk to you about resources, but I first want to introduce somebody. What wonderful partnerships we create across the Carolinas and really across the country. We can't do it alone. So Wayne Boutwell, please come from Encompass Health. This is a partnership on a wonderful program that we're going to put on today.
Thank you, Deanna, and good morning to everyone. Again, I'm Wayne Boutwell. I'm the CEO at Encompass Health Rehabilitation Hospital in Bluffton. I just would like to say that we are so proud to partner with the Parkinson's Foundation to bring this event to you guys today here in Beaufort County. I'll tell you, at Encompass Health, we stand with the Parkinson's community and everyone who has to live with this terrible disease. I would also like to thank the Creative Church for having us here at this wonderful venue. Finding a venue for this type of event was no small task, but this has worked out perfectly, and we're happy to have that. I'd like to thank all of our vendor partners and our physician partners who are here today, as well as all the staff who have worked for many weeks to get this event ready for today. So I'm sure you will all benefit from the program today. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Wayne. Okay, Wayne, here we go. Hug. Partners have to hug. I do want to thank our sponsors. Everything that we offer at the Parkinson's Foundation Carolinas chapter is at absolutely no cost to anyone. But our partners, our sponsors, are the ones that really help us. So as you all know, today was a free program. Oh, and everybody, hi virtually. I'm not forgetting about you. Thank you for joining us. We have watch parties in Greenville and Little River, and many across the Carolinas watching from home. I hope you all take the time to please visit with our sponsors. They're in the middle. I'd like to thank, and if you all want to wave your hands, Acadia, there he is, there's Tim, Abvi, Amneal, Supernus. Please do talk to the sponsors, because you know what? They have medications, drugs that you may not know about. There's a lot of research for new drug therapies. I guess I have a question. How many of you are on carbidopa? Levodopa. Come on. Well, look at that. Almost everybody with Parkinson's is on the same drug. Research is taking place. We need new drugs. So the Parkinson's Foundation is involved with that, and you will see all our resources are in the middle here. And I do want to share some things with you very quickly, and I know I have 10 minutes, so somebody put my sign up when I have only 5 when I'm done. Newly diagnosed. My husband was diagnosed in 2006. I hope a lot of you, because you got some great resources here, and you got great resources, especially in Charleston with MUSC and Compass Health. But when my husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, he was misdiagnosed for a year. The doctor said, he walked in, you have Parkinson's. We both were like, well, he doesn't have tremors. Well, how? The masked face. Do you all know about the masked face? It's one of the early signs. I said, I just thought he wasn't laughing anymore. So you don't know. So the doctor says you have Parkinson's. Here's your prescription. See you in 6 months. We go home. My husband proceeds to do what? Surf the internet. I proceed to go into the porch. And some of you watching online, I love this story, and I know I tell it, but it's the truth. And have my wine and digest what just happened, because it's a journey we never anticipated. Parkinson's Foundation offers a newly diagnosed guide. I know MUSC and others, if doctors would just give this out and say, do this, and what do you think one of the 5 things that we're focusing on in a newly diagnosed guide when diagnosed with Parkinson's? What is one thing you got to do to slow down the progression? Keep moving. We're going to have a panel up here. Scott, Ryder, and Peter and Ron are going to talk about how they're moving. Okay, the other thing that we have, hospital safety guide. I don't know if any of you have been in the hospital for something other than Parkinson's related. Again, my husband was with a hip replacement. 12 hours later, after he did not get his drugs, he said, "Deanna, give me my drugs." The nurse was right there. "You can't do that." My husband, and he usually comes, "You can't do that." "Watch me." So I had 3 days of his prescription in a pack, okay? And we gave him his drugs because with off time, you know what happens if you don't stay on that regime. Our hospital safety guide, brand new, is amazing. It will tell you exactly what to do. The forms on the back, right here, is an identification card, perforated. You take it out, put it in your wallet. Please put it in your wallet. You know what it says? "I have Parkinson's disease. I am not intoxicated." I cannot tell you how many stories, especially in the ER, just heard one last week. 3 hours to convince. So please take these. We have them all over there. And then, how am I doing on time, Dee? Oh, I got 4 minutes. I am doing good. Care Partner Guide. Brand new. How many of you, please raise your hand, care partner caregivers? Thank you. Thank you for everything that you are doing. You are a team. You heard me say at the beginning that Bubba and I have Parkinson's disease. We are a team, and we're beating it together. Care Partner Guide is an excellent resource, even including, like right now, I'm away 5 hours from my husband, so my children are taking, helping me, not taking care of him. We're care partners. He's stubborn. It teaches you how to do that, resources that you have. The foundation has tremendous resources for care partners. But thank you, teams, for all you do. And one thing that we have today on the panel for people with Parkinson's, we have a solo person, which is fascinating because we don't think of those people with Parkinson's who are alone on their journey and how they do it. Finally, you all have a packet in your bag, okay? Please do not throw it away when you get home. Well, you can't because you're going to do an evaluation. We really want to know at the end what you thought of this program because we want to meet your needs. We have the Carolinas chapter information sheet right here with my number, Dee's number. Dee, you want to raise your hand? And then Morgan. So the program is in there. We also have nutrition and PD key fact sheet and exercise because that's what we're focusing on today. Again, all of our resources are free. We do a lot of programs. We're doing Moving Day Charleston. You want to come to a program where you're going to move for 3 hours? It is magical. Get a team. You all could become a team. But without further ado now, I am going to, I got 2 minutes left, but you know what? We're going to get started. Dr. Hinson is going to moderate a panel for us, and they're going to talk about research on exercise and diet. So thank you.
Well, thank you to the Parkinson Foundation for letting the MUSC team come all the way up here from Charleston. It was a beautiful drive this morning. It's a beautiful day, and I'm glad you're taking the time to share part of this day with us. Glad to be here. I'm Dr. Vanessa Hinson. I'm a neurologist with a subspecialty in movement disorders, and I'm the director of the Parkinson Foundation Center of Excellence at MUSC in Charleston. Good morning. I also have 2 amazing panelists with me today. We have Courtney Connor here. She's a local girl. She's a registered dietitian, and she works here at Encompass Health in Bluffton, well, here in the greater sense. And Dr. Nathan DeTurk, who is one of us. So Dr. DeTurk is a neurologist and is finishing up his fellowship in movement disorders, and he will be a faculty member starting in August with our Center of Excellence. Welcome, Dr. DeTurk. So why are we doing a panel on lifestyle? Because it sounds really cool, doesn't it? Lifestyle stuff is kind of hip. So, but why is it so important? Sometimes, and Deanna just shared her story, how she and Bubba got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And for most of you, that has been kind of a life-defining moment, right? You walk into the office, you didn't have Parkinson's when you walked in, so to speak, and then you're told you got Parkinson's disease. And some of my patients have shared with me that that moment felt like they were suddenly being a victim. They're suddenly no longer in control. This Parkinson thing is in control of them. When we think about lifestyle and lifestyle interventions, we are turning everything around. This is your way to take control. Nobody else can decide or can make lifestyle choices for you. Only you can. And the choices you make will have a major influence on the trajectory that your Parkinson's will take. And so this is why I find this topic extremely empowering, and I'm glad you're here to kind of help me through this. But I think before we go more into the details of what we can all do to live better with Parkinson's and the research behind that, we should just kind of start out by understanding a little bit more about Parkinson's, and I'm going to turn to Dr. DeTurk here to answer for us what is Parkinson's, what takes place at the brain level to cause symptoms of Parkinson's, and what are the most common symptoms?
Of course. Thank you all for joining us here this morning, and thank you, Dr. Hinson, for the wonderful question. So, Parkinson's disease is essentially felt to be a deficiency of dopamine. And as, of course, you all know, dopamine isn't just the feel-good hormone. It doesn't just make us feel great. It's really the neurotransmitter that helps us move. It coordinates movement and allows us to move. What happens in Parkinson's disease we develop this deficiency, we see that the neurons that produce and store dopamine in the brain begin to die off. And the thing that's causing that is inflammation. So the neurons that produce and store dopamine get stressed out. There's a little bit of inflammation that causes them to slowly die off. And as they die off, we don't make as much dopamine, we don't store as much dopamine as we did before. So that's, of course, the hallmark of treatment is replacing that dopamine in Parkinson's disease. So the symptoms that happen, there's some hallmark symptoms, but as I said, it's the neurotransmitter that helps us move. So moving becomes harder. We get stiff, we get slow, and the coordination of movement is also an issue. So things like balance and tremor are also symptoms that we often see in Parkinson's disease. We really think about dopamine and how it's stored and how the brain produces it as one of the big things we're trying to influence when we think about how do we manage Parkinson's disease.
Exactly, and with what you just described, with that slowness and stiffness, often what you and I observe in our patients is that people tend to withdraw and spend more time at home and not go out as much because it's not as easy as it used to be. And then because some people also feel slightly anxious or that it's harder to get motivated, people don't seek out exercise opportunities as much as they should, or social opportunities, which is kind of the opposite of what we preach in the office, right?
Right.
So we really want to explain why it can make a big difference. And in this panel, this first panel, we want to convince you using research data that this goes way beyond what your primary care doctor might say to you. You should all eat healthy and move a lot and we'll have a happy and long life. There's actual science that backs up why this is specifically important in Parkinson's disease. And a lot of science comes from what we have learned in a real science lab where people sit in lab coats. Do real scientists still wear white lab coats? I think they do. All the way down to the ground. I put a little white one on today because I'm pretending to be a scientist. But take us to the science lab, Dr. DeTurk, and explain a little bit what we have learned from animal-based research, not in people, but in animal, about the effects of exercise on Parkinson's disease.
Absolutely. This is a very, very fascinating question and really, I think, an exciting one because we all have this tool, this ability to do something every single day, and it will make a huge, huge, tremendous impact on all of the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. But notably, preventing the progression, as Deanna said earlier. But how does exercise do that? So we have this amazing tool. Just go out and get exercise. Yeah, thank you. I'll speak a little louder, bring the mic closer. So how does exercise do that? How does it prevent the progression? So there's this hormone that the brain produces called the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So what does that mean? So it's this hormone that essentially gets produced and released from the brain that actually helps neurons grow and protects against that inflammation that I mentioned earlier, and you're going to hear that word a lot. So it actually helps protect neurons from inflammation. So we found that when you have animals or people exercising, it produces and releases this hormone, and that causes neurons to actually grow. Not just protects them against the inflammation, but they actually form new connections with other neurons, form new neurons, and heal themselves from inflammation. And of course, why is that so important? As I mentioned before, the inflammation aspect of Parkinson's disease is a huge thing that we've learned from animal models, that this is what is causing the death to neurons that store and produce dopamine. So any way that we can reduce that inflammation, protect neurons from the inflammation, protect them from dying off, is really the biggest thing that we can do to prevent the progression. So BDNF, when you exercise regularly, and we'll of course talk about what that looks like in terms of the actual pattern of exercise, what exercise works best, but it's actually helping protect your brain from Parkinson's progression. So BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, very, very important, and that's really the hallmark of what's helping prevent progression and helping you fight off Parkinson's disease when you're getting outside or talking to a friend or family member and saying, let's go for a walk, let's get some exercise, let's ride a bike. So that's what we all need to be doing.
And in the science lab, what the researchers do, they make little mice and rats exercise. So they're actually quite obedient. They love to run around. So they, first they inflict Parkinson's on them, and then these little critters run around the lab. And the researchers can measure these BDNF important levels.
That's
and
right.
They can show that they're elevated after they go on a run. While it might be harder for all of us to do a BDNF check every time we hit the gym, you can do that in that experimental setting, and it has been shown to clearly elevate. Whereas, quite honestly, as clinical researchers, like Dr. DeTurk and I primarily are, there's been several clinical studies trying to give BDNF to people, maybe an infusion or through a viral
That's
vector.
right. Yep.
And we have not been particularly successful, right?
Unfortunately not, yeah. So that's a great question. A lot of people might think, BDNF, this hormone. Well, we can give people hormones. We have medicines, we can make it. And we've tried. We've certainly tried. But unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to work very well in actually giving people this hormone, BDNF, or similar, what we call neurotrophic factors, these ones that protect neurons, protect the brain. It's not the same as just getting the exercise. And the thought is that exercise not just helps produce this hormone, but it's an additive effect. The more that we're exercising, the more actually that our brains are producing and releasing this hormone, and it lasts for a long time. So it's not the same as just taking this medication every single day, but you're actually getting it released over a longer and longer period of time. And the brain is actually producing and releasing itself. So it gets exactly where it needs to be right when it's produced. Whereas when we try to give it to people, it's really hard to get it to exactly where we want it to be. So that's one of the big advantages of doing exercise. It makes that hormone, it protects neurons exactly where you want it to be right from the start, and it lasts.
And you mentioned this important word, right from the start. Based on this data, this is why it's so important to start this exercise lifestyle change early, right? So if you think about, if you have a certain number of dopamine neurons still, producing, you want to protect those guys, right, as early as you can by elevating your BDNF factor. So So all good points. But what we've found in science is that we can show a lot of things in animals, but there's a big difference between people and animals. So people with Parkinson's are definitely much different from a mouse with Parkinson's disease, and which is why a number of the drugs that work on mice and rats don't work on people. One of the reasons is, if you think about how do we give a mouse Parkinson's, it's usually either we give them a toxin or we create a lesion on their brain, but it's a sudden one hit, boom, you have it. Whereas with regular Parkinson's in people, it takes years and sometimes decades to develop. So it's really kind of a semi-good experimental model.
Right.
That's why I wanted to ask you the next question, which is, can you share with folks some data from exercise research trials in people? They've been quite large ones, actually. Can you comment on the Sparks one, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously learning all this about the excitement of protecting the brain, helping neurons grow, is huge within the field, because that's really what we found, the one thing that we have in Parkinson's disease to prevent the progression. And that's exactly what the Sparks study was looking at. So this study was done, I believe, out of Northwestern, and they enrolled patients with earlier onset Parkinson's disease. Patients who might have symptoms on one side or both, but still able to get around well and exercise. And they had put them into 3 separate groups. This high-intensity exercise group, a moderate-intensity exercise group, and a group that didn't exercise in a formal program. And what does those different exercise groups look like? So the high-intensity exercise group was essentially exercising at about 80% of their maximum heart rate. So if you think about the heart rate calculation, it's 220 about minus your age is your maximum heart rate. So 80% of your maximum heart rate for somebody who's 60 might be around 130 beats per minute. So they're exercising at that kind of level for a half an hour, 4 times a week for 6 months, and that's the high intensity group. And the moderate intensity group, more so at around 60% of your maximum heart rate, so maybe around 100 beats per minute. And then the no formal exercise group. So this study compared those 3 groups over 6 months. So again, 30 minutes of exercise 4 times a week over 6 months at different intensities. And they looked at how their Parkinson's symptoms progressed. And what they found is that the high intensity group, those people working out at about 80% of their maximum heart rate, actually had improvement in their symptoms. They had better Parkinson's disease metrics, what we call this UPDRS. It's a score to look at the motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease. That was better than when they started. Now, the moderate intensity group did decline a little bit, and as you might expect, the group that didn't exercise declined the most. But there was still a benefit to that moderate exercise group, though the high intensity group obviously had the biggest impact, and they actually had some improvement in their symptoms.
You know what? I just realized some people's heartbeat just went up from hearing high-intensity exercise. That can be quite intimidating. So to add to this, it's very good data from this Sparks trial. But to just kind of put you to ease, there's also data from a trial where people just walked for 6 months, and the intervention was a 6 months walking program. And even in that trial, people showed that A, quality of life improved, B, motor symptoms of Parkinson's improved. So while this group, the Sparks trial, obviously showed this more is better or higher intensity is better, I just want to assure you that even the lower grade interventions like the 6 months walking program made a difference, scientifically proven.
Absolutely.
So. But yeah, that was fascinating to hear. And Sparks, by the way, has another phase. If anybody lives near Emory in Atlanta, I think they're enrolling for Sparks 3 right now.
That's right.
But I think that would be the closest center to this area. We are unfortunately not part of that, but fascinating data. So, some people might need a little bit more convincing, though. This brain-derived neurotrophic factor and this and that, and but some people want to actually see the benefit that exercise has on the brain. And I believe imaging researchers can kind of show you what exercise does on a brain scan to your brain.
Yeah, that's right. pretty amazing. This study just came out about a year ago, but it was a similar study enrolling patients who had Parkinson's disease earlier on in their disease course. And what they wanted to know was the effect that exercise actually had when we look at these different areas of the brain. So some of you may have heard a few terms that I'm going to mention. One of them is called a DAT, or a DAT scan. You may have heard that before. Somebody may have done a DAT scan to help diagnose your Parkinson's disease. So DAT, when we talk about that, is DAT. It's dopamine transporter is what it stands for. And it's a way that we look at the integrity or the health of the dopamine system in the brain. And it's an actual brain scan that we can do. So we actually use this special type of molecule to tag that dopamine transporter. And we can actually see how much of that there is going on in the brain. So it's a good metric for us to say, this looks completely normal. There's a little asymmetry, so that's a sign of Parkinson's disease. Or even more degeneration, there's some progression or more advanced Parkinson's disease. So researchers looked at this as one of those metrics, just to give you some background. And then another metric that they looked at is called neuromelanin. So when our brains produce dopamine, they actually also produce melanin, the things that the compound that gives our skin color, as a byproduct. So you all may have heard of this area in the brain called the substantia nigra, or black substance is really what it stands for. So the reason why it's black is because of that melanin that is produced from the dopamine that our brains produce. So when it's healthy, it is black and dark because there's that melanin that is being created as a byproduct. So to give you some background on why they looked at this thing called neuromelanin, because that's what a healthy substantia nigra looks like. It's dark, it's black, it has this byproduct melanin from the dopamine production. So researchers looked at both of these things, the DAT, or dopamine transporter, as a metric of looking at the dopamine system in the brain and how healthy it is, as well as the dopamine production, the substantia nigra area of the brain. And what they found was that in people who were exercising with a moderate intensity, so this is about 70% of your maximum heart rate, again, about 3 or 4 times a week, over 6 months, what they actually showed is that dopamine system in the brain, the DAT system, was actually working better. There is better communication between neurons. So the dopamine, the thought is essentially that this is showing the dopamine system is working better. So when you're taking your levodopa, it's going to work better if you're somebody who regularly exercises. That's really the takeaway from this study. And on top of that, there was more of that neuromelanin produced in the brain, basically showing that there is actually increased production of dopamine naturally within the brain. So maybe actually a reversibility of some of that damage in Parkinson's disease. So that substantia nigra that degenerates, that produces and stores dopamine, it seems to actually reverse some of that damage. So tremendous finding, really, really exciting. So we can really actually see that, as Dr. Hinson mentioned, that the dopamine system is working better, and we're actually probably healing the brain a little bit if we're exercising in Parkinson's.
I think we've convinced pretty much everybody in the audience now. Good job, good job. But the question is how now, right? So how do I do this? Where do I sign up for this exercise thing? And a number of you might just ask your doctor for a physical therapy prescription, right? But then after 6 weeks, your insurance says, you're out of visits. So that's frustrating. So, I highly recommend community-based exercise. That means it is on you, but you can carry it on forward. This is going to be your new you. And you don't depend on, a therapy visit or something like that, or the mercy of your insurance company. So can we very briefly, to finish the exercise portion before we go to diet, touch on what benefits do available programs like Rocksteady Boxing? A lot of people have heard about Rocksteady, and we'll have a demonstration here today, I believe. Pickleball for Parkinson's disease. At MUSC, we developed the program Pick It Up for pickleball and Parkinson's disease. What data do we have, for example, on the Rocksteady, that it can make a difference today on the symptoms we have?
Another great question. So lots of evidence that many of these different exercise programs that we have for Parkinson's disease really not only do they, of course, help with producing more of this BDNF, reducing inflammation, helping protect the brain, but they get you exercising more. They help foster this community where you have other people to go and exercise with, other people with Parkinson's disease that are in a similar situation. You actually get to know them, see how they're coping, learn from them. And it makes a huge difference to have that community, because it really helps with keeping you coming back, getting you exercising, and helping build your support network. And that is one of the biggest things about these community classes that really helps folks with Parkinson's disease. On top of that, there's a lot of benefit for other aspects, like some symptoms of Parkinson's disease, like balance is a big one. So rock steady boxing, Tai Chi, yoga, some of these things that kind of focus a little bit more on posture and balance have been shown to actually really make a big difference in helping people with their balance, preventing falls. And on top of that, it's other types of exercise, boxing, cycling, running, walking, whatever it might be. It's really just the exercise that you're doing that makes the biggest difference. So that's one of the number one things is find something that you love and you enjoy, and you find people that will do it with you to make sure you're keeping up with the exercise.
Very important point. It doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be biking. It doesn't have to be tandem biking, which was one of the publications that got a lot of press. If you don't like boxing, you play pickleball. If you don't like the paddle, you do Tai Chi. It can be anything that fulfills these parameters. Very, very encouraging to hear that. But you know what? After hearing so much about exercise, I kind of get hungry. So what should I be eating? Seriously, Courtney, you need to help us out here. So we have Parkinson's disease, right? So we feel that our body is maybe a little bit stressed and maybe not in the best position to start a vigorous exercise program. And now the doctor convinced us that we should. What puts us in the best position to go in strong on this? What are your kind of general dietary recommendations for people with Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, good question. Just want to say thank you, everyone, for having me here. So when we think about diet, as part of the lifestyle changes that we need to make with Parkinson's, right? Like exercise is one of those lifestyle changes. Diet is another one that we can implement today, and it can make a difference today. Looking at diet, research shows that there is a diet called the MIND diet, and it stands for Mediterranean Intervention Against Neurodegenerative Loss. So basically what that means is that it's helping promote brain health. It reduces cognitive decline. I know that we talked a lot about inflammation, and so it reduces inflammation in the brain as well. And there's actually a handout in your packets about this MIND diet, different foods to avoid, different foods to have more of, but it's really looking at having less processed foods, less saturated fats, more of your greens, your fruits, your vegetables, whole grains, those things that really everyone should be consuming, not just people with Parkinson's or people trying to promote brain health, but in the general public, we should also be having, these things as well in our diet. But there's a lot of research that goes into this. If you've heard of the Mediterranean diet, that's part of this. For a reason. It's reducing that inflammation. It's helping protect our brain cells. It also has cardiovascular benefits as well. And so overall, I think that, when someone, if you're looking to implement something that's going to help you today, that diet is definitely going to be something that's helpful.
Tastes really good too. I love
Yeah.
all the
Yes.
and that makes it easier for sure. Some people ask me about the ketogenic diet. Is that something you hear in your office also discussed?
Yes, so that's a big question. The ketogenic diet is hard. We're looking at evidence-based practices, right? We want there to be some sort of evidence behind these diets, not just someone on the internet telling us that we should be doing this keto diet or whatever other diet there is. With the MIND diet, a huge emphasis is on saturated fats, and those are those fats, what we call bad fats. And so by undertaking a ketogenic diet, you're actually probably going to increase those saturated fats in your diet, and that has been shown to have more of an inflammatory response that we want to avoid. So right now, evidence is lacking on that diet and what that means. A lot of people do it for weight loss, which is a different thing than for someone with Parkinson's. So not a lot of evidence against it. I don't usually tell any of my patients to start doing that. If they were previously doing it and they like it, then that's a different story, but something to talk to your doctor or your dietitian about.
And you just mentioned weight loss, and it's interesting that we usually in my clinic, I hear that the opposite way. People don't want to lose weight. A number of you actually are losing weight, and you're asking me, what can you do to gain weight? And then I'm asking you to see Courtney so she can tell you what you should do to gain weight. Because it's a little bit problematic, right? We just had a show of hands who's on levodopa, and almost everybody raised their hand. And your doctor will probably tell you, take levodopa on an empty stomach to facilitate its absorption, right? What does that mean? Well, it means if you take your levodopa together with a full meal, either the protein out of your diet or your levodopa will be absorbed, but not both. We're in direct competition. And I have patients who are very sensitive to this. If they just look at food, their levodopa is not being absorbed. And they're having a dark off period, and they don't enjoy that. So they are strictly going by my recommendation, which is very nice, to not eat when they take levodopa, but they take levodopa every 3 hours, so basically they can never eat. That's a problem. It's a problem, especially as we get older. So then we don't have muscle mass and we can't exercise. So it is a problem. The other problem is that with Parkinson's disease, it is the nature of the illness that we might lose up to 30 pounds just from having Parkinson's disease. Our internal metabolism is in high gear from having the disorder. So coming back to the question I'm asking you, what is the best advice for people to either not lose weight or to gain it back?
Yeah, good question. As Dr. Hinson said, weight loss kind of comes with Parkinson's, the disease process, how your body responds to it. And it kind of jacks up that metabolism, which maybe in our younger days that was great. Not with Parkinson's. You want to make sure that you're preserving muscle mass. When we lose weight, our muscles tend to be the ones that go first. And so obviously we need those muscles to help with movement and then exercise as well. So one thing that I tell my patients is to have smaller, more frequent meals. And so then, if you feel like you're not as hungry, which that's another thing, a lot of people have decreased appetite. They're just like, I don't want to eat. You don't have that hunger response like you used to. So I always tell someone, smaller, more nutrient-dense meals, which means, the more bang for your buck. You can have a small amount of something, of a food, but it gives the same amount of calories and protein and nutrients as maybe another food that you have to eat a larger amount of. So that's things like nuts, cottage cheese, fruit, almonds, dates, what else? Granola is another one. Granola, you don't have to have a lot of granola in order to get a lot of calories and nutrients from it. So if you're experiencing weight loss, you're not feeling like you're as hungry, a simple Google search will help you find more of those nutrient-dense foods that you can incorporate into your diet, and making sure that we're not losing weight or getting back up to a weight that we should be at.
So important, so important. let's come back to the protein. So two new things in the grocery stores these days, right? When we go shopping, the prices are so high that you can't believe you're reading this price tag on it, but it is true. I looked at Liz cereal for $9, like some Kellogg's. Like, what? So anyways, and second, everything has the word protein on it, right? Like protein in your cereal, in your whatever, where it doesn't belong. It even says protein on milk. Like, what? That it didn't have protein before? But anyway, with this label though, this is why I'm coming to you now, and we just said that dietary protein can prevent the absorption of levodopa. How do we get around having too much protein in our stomachs that keeps us from absorbing? Should we maybe shift our protein to the evening? You probably have discussed that with patients.
Yeah, correct. So protein it kind of fights against the absorption of that levodopa in the body. And so a way to go around that is by medication timing and meal timing. However, that works to some extent until maybe you're taking it every 3 hours. Then that kind of it gets a little complicated, right? We tell our patients, myself and then Encompass as well, we tell our patients to try to take that Cinemed or that levodopa, carbidopa, levodopa, 30 minutes before meals. If you can. But again, if you're taking that medication every 3 hours, that becomes complicated. So I also want to make it clear that you do not want to avoid protein, avoid eating because you forgot to take your medicine and you forgot and you're like, okay, well now I can't eat because it won't get absorbed. Try to avoid that. Keep going with how your medication is supposed to be taken. Eat when you can. The calories are somewhat more important than like not eating. But at the same token, if you're worried about it or you see that protein with your medication is starting to become a real issue, then you can have more of that protein later in the day when you may not need to move as much. Like you could kind of load up your protein in the dinner area or before bed to make sure that you do get that protein that your body needs. But you're going to bed, so you don't need to move as well as you would maybe in the morning. It's one way to get around it. Just talking with your doctor, talking with a dietitian, trying to find a good plan of meals, medication as well. That timing is important.
And also, it brings us, what you're saying, Courtney, brings us back to what Deanna said in the very beginning. We need some new therapies, right, that allow us to eat and still have Parkinson's disease. So luckily, some advances have been made. And there are some therapies available now that are delivered not through the stomach, but just under the skin. So if you want to ask your movement disorder specialist, if you have these interactions with food to a point where you don't know when to eat or you starve yourself, which I have plenty of patients who have that, ask about some advanced therapies that might deliver medicine under the skin with a pump. So you would get levodopa infused under your skin 24 hours a day, and you can eat whenever you want, and you can have protein milk whenever you want. So, those advances have been made. It's amazing that we don't have to live like that if we don't want to. I want you to also touch on something related to constipation, and I want actually Dr. DeTurk to start with this. Constipation is common in Parkinson's disease, but it can start years and years before tremor and stiffness even appear. How does that work?
Absolutely. So like Dr. Hinson said, constipation can be one of these what we call prodromal features of Parkinson's, meaning we see the symptoms sometimes decades before the tremor or the slowness or the stiffness of Parkinson's disease. And the thought is maybe that the Parkinson's pathology is actually starting in the stomach or in the gut, and that's why we're developing constipation, decades ahead of time. But how does that occur? So, and this is why diet is so important. We've actually found that the microbiome, the bacteria that we all have in our stomach, in our intestines, is different in people who have Parkinson's disease or develop it earlier. It promotes inflammation and actually leads to the production of this abnormal protein that I'm sure you've all heard of, alpha-synuclein, that it misfolds that protein. So that protein itself isn't bad, just as a side note, but it causes misfolding of that protein, and that's what causes damage to neurons. So the theory is that potentially this inflammation that happens in the stomach from the microbiome not working well causes damage to that protein, and then that damages neurons, and because it's happening in the stomach, it leads to these symptoms of constipation really early on. But again, why? Diet, very, very important.
Yeah, and such a fascinating gut-brain connection. Who would have ever thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do we do about it, Courtney?
Yeah. So, and to add on to that, there's a lot of research in that, gut microbiome and how that relates to Parkinson's, but and other diseases, and how it could be, like a precursor to it. But yeah, as far as constipation goes, keeping our, GI tract, our gut microbiome healthy, I always tell everyone to take a probiotic. In our hospital at Encompass, we give everyone a probiotic. It is a really good way to bring variety to the gut microbiome, which is really what this research is saying. We have to give our gut a variety of not only foods, but of these like probiotics, prebiotics. So the more variety of foods that we can eat, it not only helps like our brain, but that gut-brain connection and our gut microbiome. So probiotics, I would 100% look into that if you're not already on one. In addition to that, fiber. So increasing our fiber intake. That MIND diet that I talked about earlier, that you guys have sheets on in your folders, those foods that are considered healthy and you should eat more of on this diet are going to be high in fiber. So things like legumes and whole grains, fruits, vegetables, those are all high in fiber, and they're going to help, move that food through your GI tract. And the reason why constipation can happen is because that GI tract itself is a muscle. So movement disorder, muscle movement through. So that fiber kind of helps food move through your GI tract a little bit better.
How much water do we need so the fiber doesn't turn into a fiber ball?
Oh, yes. Good question. So fiber or water, you do need to drink enough water. I mean, at least 8 glasses a day of your normal glasses, at least. Yeah, everyone starts taking sips of water out there. So at least that much water, not only to help the fiber, but just everything. Your body needs fluids. And this is not just for Parkinson's, but for everyone. Yes, so making sure that we're doing that so that fiber really, really helps.
That's right.
Yes.
All right, very, very good information. But, this is all for you guys. So I need you to now be the active part of this panel. You're suddenly part of it. And you don't have to come up here. But what we would like to do is have you ask questions to us, to any of us up here, and we give you the answers. So hopefully we were fairly complete, but one can never be too complete. So we have microphones in the audience, and whoever raises their hand first gets the first question.
Thank you. This is great, by the way. Anyone would say that. So regarding, and I should look at my note, is there an association, or have you looked at association between other hormones like adrenaline when talking about exercise and sports, like adding the risk factor, the stakes factor, and even when you're introducing the BDNF, I think it was, if you've tried associating that hormone with others as well for uptake purposes. And obviously otherwise, from a lifestyle perspective, finding those minor sort of sporty type activities where there's a stake involved to promote the movement? Thank you.
Yeah, I can take that question. So excellent question for those that may not have heard it or those watching online. So the question was, what about other hormones when it comes to exercise? How does that relate to Parkinson's disease? Does it have an interaction with the hormone I mentioned earlier, BDNF, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor? Does that sound right? Great. These hormones, there's much more than just BDNF. There's another one called GDNF. It's glial-derived, another brain factor, and then many other hormones that we produce, just naturally, but also with exercise, and they do work synergistically, and they all really help to promote, a healthy brain, protect neurons, protect against inflammation. Regarding adrenaline in particular, so it certainly does help allow us to exercise, right? It increases our heart rate, increases our blood pressure, make sure that we can actually do these things without passing out, and our muscles not fatiguing. So we certainly need things like that, and that can be a factor when it comes to Parkinson's disease as it advances. Sometimes we might not produce quite as much of these hormones that can keep our blood pressure elevated. So certainly if you're noticing, this is just a hallmark, if you're noticing, you get lightheaded when you just try to stand up, that's a question for your neurologist, because we can do things to help you other than just say, drink more water. There's medications that can help you. So that is an aspect of Parkinson's disease as well. So thank you for that question, that some of these other hormones might not be produced as much as we need them to be, but there's things that we can do to help make sure that you can get up and you can move around without having a fear of passing out or getting lightheaded and falling. So very important thing as well.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. I've noticed that I'm on, like everybody in here, it sounds like the carbidopa and the levodopa, whatever, however you pronounce it. But I've noticed that any kind of stress at all increases the shaking, even though I take the medicine, even though I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, sure I'm on time with it. But is there a correlation between stress and the shaking?
Yeah, another excellent question. So certainly, as you might notice with Parkinson's disease, anytime that you're having, and I'm sorry, let me repeat the question for those online who may not have heard it. The question is there an association between the stress and shaking, or maybe even other symptoms of Parkinson's disease? And certainly, yeah, when we're stressed, of course, you can feel it. You're producing more neurotransmitters, right? Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, start to sweat a little bit. Your brain is active, your body is active. So you're actually using more of the dopamine. So anytime you're doing something that's stressful or even exciting, or really exercising to a good extent, sometimes you use up that dopamine a little bit more, which really brings up another great point is when you're exercising, try to make sure you're doing it when you're on. When you're on the levodopa, really helps with your actual being able to exercise, makes it more effective. Makes you more efficient, but certainly, talk to your neurologist. That might be a situation where if you can predict, I'm going to be in a stressful situation, or I'm trying to get exercise, and every time I do, I start to wear off. You might just need to have what we call an as-needed dose of medication. Half hour beforehand, before you go and do that exercise, you take a tiny bit extra. But make sure you talk to your neurologist or your movement disorder neurologist about that before you just go ahead and start doing it.
How can you tell if the protein is impacting your levodopa? I mean,
how can you tell? If you can tell, it is not. Okay, but not to joke this off, but to give you the real answer. So it comes back to, how do you tell if you have an off period? So some people say to me in the office, just what you guys said, how do I know if I have on-off fluctuations? You only know it if you live it. And what that would mean is, for example, you take your levodopa morning dose, and it works nice for you. You have less tremor, you're less stiff, you're more mobile. But before your next dose is due, all those benefits go away. You're less mobile, you shape more, you can't walk as well. That would be an off period. And then with the next dose, it would resolve again. If you have the protein interaction, you're on and your tremor is better and you walk better, and then with your next dose, you take it with a meal and it never kicks in. And you're still off, your tremor is bad and you don't walk well. And so that on period just never happened because you just neutralized your dose of levodopa with a dose of protein, pretty much.
Yeah, so just to add on to that, if you have your dose with a meal that, say it's breakfast, and you're having eggs and sausage, things that are high in protein, and you try to get up and go play pickleball afterwards or go do something, and you notice like a actual difference of I'm not able to move as well, as good as I normally do, it's probably because of that protein.
Hello, could you tell us about the effects of alcohol on the progression of Parkinson's?
Yes, so a lot of research, there's a lot of research going into that as well. Effects of alcohol not only on Parkinson's itself, but your medications. A lot of our medications we should not be taking with alcohol because it limits its effects. As far as alcohol goes, if that is someone's thing, they go home at night and they have a glass of wine. I'm all for, a little bit of moderation, but if you're having a lot or you're seeing changes in your symptoms because of it, then maybe that's a sign to reduce. Overall, as part of a healthy diet, alcohol isn't necessarily a part of that, correct? So it's the same as for someone with Parkinson's, as the general public. Moderation, one drink, it may not interfere. It may. If you notice, signs or symptoms increasing or getting worse, that could be part of it. I don't know if you guys have any scientific.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that. As I mentioned before, blood pressure can be low as other neurotransmitters are affected in Parkinson's, not just dopamine, and of course, alcohol. It's kind of what it does to our nervous system. It helps us relax, calm down by kind of turning down the dial a little bit. So it actually, will lower your blood pressure a little bit. So obviously, be very careful if you have a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease when you're drinking alcohol, because it'll lower your heart rate, lower your blood pressure, increase your risk for potentially getting lightheaded, dizzy when you stand up, or even passing out and falling. Be very careful, obviously. And then on top of that, we haven't mentioned sleep too much yet, but alcohol definitely significantly affects your stages of sleep, and obviously sleep is already a big factor when it comes to Parkinson's disease, as many of you know firsthand. Keep an eye on that. I'm not telling everybody here you can never drink alcohol again, but it's definitely going to affect how you feel. It's going to affect your sleep, so you might feel particularly worse the following day. Be careful with it.
We're having more hands over here.
We have several online questions, so we'd like to respond to our viewers. Jamie is asking, are there any weekly online live support groups for talking and sharing for the PD patient and their caregivers? And if I could just say about the Parkinson's Foundation, call the helpline. Can you all hear me? Now you can. Sorry. Yeah, I'll get the real microphone. I do better with that. Call the helpline, 1-800-4PD-INFO, but that info is in your packet. The helpline can tell you about online and a lot of other things. And I don't know if you all know of any live or internet support groups. Okay, is this better?
It's exponentially better.
Thank you. We are not using that anymore. Okay, did you all hear the question, or should I repeat it very quickly?
The question we heard, but not your answer.
Okay, the answer that I'm going to share with all of you is about the Parkinson's Foundation. If you call our helpline, 1-800-4PD-INFO. That number is in your packet. By the way, this is all being recorded and we're going to send it to you. They will be able to tell you about online services. The next question is for the panel from Neil. Has there been any research, positive outcomes when it comes to amino acids?
Yes, so amino acids they're like the building blocks of protein. So as far as research, I'm not like specifically sure what they're asking, but I mean, it's same goes for that protein intake. That's maybe what they're referring to. I'm not, go ahead.
In particular, I would say I have not seen any particular evidence saying you need to supplement this specific amino acid and it's super helpful for Parkinson's.
Correct.
I think, as we mentioned today, you're going to get all of the really essentially necessary nutrients out of following a pretty healthy diet that's full of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and really primarily fish as your protein source. Mm-hmm. And really following that is going to be probably the number one thing that you can do when it comes to your nutrition status.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's something extra that you really need to be buying or adding into your diet when it comes to like maybe amino acid supplementation that's going to be a difference maker for the large majority of patients.
And to the same token, there's so many other supplements other than amino acid, and they can get very costly. If we follow these general dietary recommendations and we are not known to be deficient of a certain vitamin or anything else, we do not need to take these supplements. As scientists, we have studied numerous iterations of this: vitamin E, vitamin C, coenzyme Q10, and you name it, essentially. And we have not been able to prove that they have a positive influence on the course of Parkinson's disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that general, that mind diet or that Mediterranean lifestyle diet, it will give you all the necessary nutrients that your body needs, and you shouldn't have to supplement on top of that.
Okay, we have one more question we're going to take online. Natalie is asking, are people with Parkinson's prone to low sodium? If so, when drinking more water, should we add electrolytes?
Yeah, so if you do have low sodium, you've been told by your doctor, you may need to supplement with some, eat more salty foods, may need to supplement with some salt tabs. That also goes into low blood pressure. That could be contributing to that as well. If you have Parkinson's, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have low sodium. It depends on the person and other things going on. But if you do, then, that is something that your doctor can prescribe for you.
Usually the only scenario in which we like to advise the person should use electrolyte supplements or use a Gatorade or one of those drinks is in the setting of what Dr. De Turk described, if we get lightheaded or dizzy standing up quickly. And then those drinks can be really helpful. Just be careful that it's not the low sugar, no sugar variant, because it unfortunately gives you artificial sweeteners, and the artificial sweeteners will dehydrate you. So you're drinking a lot of the stuff thinking you're hydrating, but you're actually dehydrating because these large molecules draw any water you have into your that's why we often have a lot of urinary output after drinking diet drinks. So just make sure, they do come with a lot of sugar, unfortunately, a lot of the electrolyte drinks, but maybe the powder, I think the powders don't as much.
Not as much, yeah, not as much as like a Gatorade would.
Yeah, but if you just have tomato juice, for example, it doesn't have to be some fancy electrolyte supplement.
Correct.
That's salty enough.
Correct, and just adding maybe a little bit of extra salt on your food.
Yeah, right. Sometimes we'll actually tell people to take salt tablets. Just obviously be careful if you have heart failure, making sure you're asking your primary care physician or your cardiologist if this is right, and watch, if you do have heart failure, obviously watch your weight. That's a good sign of how hydrated you are.
We have more questions in the room if we have time, please. Oh, or there also. And here in the front also.
Good morning. Thank you for having everybody here. This is very enlightening. One thing you mentioned earlier was physical therapy, and Medicare cut you off after 6 visits or whatever it is. Well, if you also have TRICARE and Medicare together, they'll pay for it for as long as you can go. I've been on it going every time, for 2 days a week for over a year and a half now, and they take care of it through TRICARE and Medicare. Yeah.
That's a great point you're making, and also plug for the VA. If you're a veteran and you're getting physical therapy for the VA is very generous with physical therapy, has amazing services for Parkinson's disease at the Charleston VA, the Ralph H. Johnson VA Medical Center, and if you check if you might be service connected for Parkinson's disease. But TRICARE has been amazing, and I'm glad you had that positive experience. LSVT big is usually, or Power for PD, the form of physical therapy that we think is very, very good for Parkinson's disease. And you will have a Parkinson's specialized physical therapy if you choose that modality. And that's usually available in many areas throughout the state.
So someone in stage 1 Parkinson's who is exercising 6-7 days a week, and eating well, what is the expectation of the slowness of the advancement of the stages? Doing everything you're suggesting, what is that expectation realistic?
So what do you get if you follow all this, right? So the question relates to rate of progression of Parkinson's disease if one were to implement all these good guidelines. Now, the first answer to that is that the rate of progression of Parkinson's disease naturally is highly variable, right? Somebody can have a very indolent course and do really well for 10 years, and another person is severely handicapped within 5 years. What determines that? Probably the question why you got Parkinson's to begin with. You might carry a gene for Parkinson's disease, and I hope all of you have participated in PD Generation, an amazing study where you get free genetic testing and counseling through the Parkinson Foundation, or Vet PD if you're a veteran. If you're interested in that, you can sign up today at the MUSC table. We have a special area for genetics. You would understand which gene you have. Depending on which gene you have, the genetic counselor could already predict some of what your course of Parkinson's disease might be. There are certain genes that go along with a very nice and mild progression, and other genes that make it just a little bit more difficult. Very important. You might have had a toxic exposure. You might be a veteran where Agent Orange or some other toxic exposure played a role. That will influence the course of your Parkinson's disease. So the age at which you get Parkinson's makes a big difference as well. In any of these cases, the lifestyle factors will bring you down a notch. How much that is not tangible. It's very hard for me to say, because you exercised, you're doing 10% better. That is not how that works. But I know you are doing better, but by what percentage, I would have to kind of randomize you to 2 arms. That is difficult to say. But I can say to you, honestly, that all people who do well, not everybody, but almost everybody I treat who does well, follows along these recommendations that our experts today have made, and it cannot be coincidental.
Okay.
Dr. DeTurk, you mentioned sleep. That is one of our main issues. I wonder how many people in this room have difficulty about sleep, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. There's certainly a lot of things, and sleep is a little bit complex. That could be another symposium in and of itself. But to say a few words on things that can help, exercise is really actually one of the biggest things. When we look at the research in Parkinson's disease, getting a little bit of exercise can really help with sleep quite a bit. So another plug for obviously getting your exercise in, of course. Why else would we be here? But additionally, a little can go a long way when it comes to sleep in terms of sleep hygiene, what we call it. Trying to go to bed the same time every night, making sure you're trying to put away screens if you can for at least an hour before you go to bed. If you can't, for whatever reason, using those filters that block out that light, that blue light that is going to keep you awake or tell you that it's not time, tell your brain that it's not time for sleep. So try to put those away. Go to bed the same time every single night. Get up the same time every single day. whether or not you have something to do. It's really important to keep that really consistent schedule. Of course, there's a lot of other things that can go on with sleep, like acting out dreams, waking up frequently throughout the night. Those are a little bit more detailed questions you're going to have to chat with your neurologist about, but it's a really important topic. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but feel free to find me in the audience. We'll talk more.
This is sadly the end of this amazing panel, but all of us panelists will be here through the duration of the symposium. So you can find us in the back, just chat with us more, and we're happy to do that. That's why we're here today. Thank you again, Courtney Connor, for coming and being part of this. Dr. DeTurk, thank you so much.
Everybody ready to move? Movement. Okay. I first want to tell you the diet that Courtney kept referring to that would be in your packet. Can the music be turned off? Thank you. I really like the music, though. I like to dance. The diet that Courtney was referring to is not in your folders. We are going to email all of you and all online the diet, okay? And this also, I told you, is being recorded, so I see many of you taking copious notes. We will send you the recording. Now, it is time to move. I want to introduce Carter, who will introduce, for those of you that don't know about Rocksteady Boxing, 10 minutes of getting you moving here, and all of you online, if you're at home sitting on that living room chair, get up and move. Here we go.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I'm super grateful to be here. I just want to thank the Parkinson's Foundation, Renee and Lindsay with Encompass, and just all the panelists. I think that was super informative for me, and I'm sure it was for you guys too. That was amazing. Thank you. So, as she said, I'm with Rocksteady Boxing Hilton Head, and my job today is to get you moving. So we're going to do 4 different exercises, 2 rounds, 40 seconds of working, 20 seconds of rest. Cool? So, first exercise, we're going to do some squats to stimulate our substantia nigra. Yeah? And we're going to do some boxing for that BDNF. And we're going to do marching high knees. We're going to do 2 variations. So we're going to go elbow to knee on the outside, and then we're going to go cross elbow to knee. Cool? So I see you're all waiting for it. I don't know why. Everybody, let's stand up and spread out. Come on, it's time to do stuff. All right. So just a test run really quick, just to make sure we can all do it. Let's reach our hands out, and we're just going to try to make as much space as you can without smacking somebody in the face. Cool? All right. So if you got a fair amount of space, try to find yourself in front of a chair if you can, at least just for the first exercise. The first exercise, we're going to squat down. You can sit in the chair, squat down. We're going to come back up, and we're going to go 1, 2, and we're going to count it out. Count it out. Got to work that voice. And we are getting started in 3, 2, 1, go. Squat, up, 1, 2, count it. 1, 2, come on, Rocksteady people, give us a good showing. Yeah, there you go. At least you guys say something. Yeah, squat, 1, 2. Keep working, keep working, keep working. Amazing. Yes. Don't lose your breath. Yeah, you got 20 seconds. Come on, keep it up. All right. Heck yeah. 10 seconds. In 3, 2, 1, rest. We're going to go 20 seconds rest. Our next one, we're going that outside elbow to knee march. Trying to get working where we're getting up to 70% of our max heart rate, as you heard. In 5 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1, let's go. This is how ninjas block kicks, actually. Keep it up, guys. Come on. Yeah. There you go. Amazing. Keep it up. 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Walking exercise too, that's okay. And time. All right, next one. We actually both started with kickboxing, so not just boxing. We're going to add some kicks in now if we can. If you can't kick, you can just pick your knee up just like we just did. So we're going to throw 2, which is going to be our right hand, unless you're left-handed. And we're going to go 3 is a lead hook. So 2, 3, right knee, or 2, 3, right kick. In 3, 2, 1, go. 2, 3, count it out, count it out. We count everything. 2, 3, right kick. Oh my. You guys look dangerous. Come on, come on, come on. Let me hear it, let me hear it. 2, 3, right kick. I wasn't kidding. Yeah, somebody say something. It's awkward up here when it's quiet. Keep working, keep working. Yes, yes, yes. In 3, 2, 1, rest. All right, next one, we're going to go cross, elbow to knee. Same thing, marching. Trying to get 70% of your max heart rate. I'm saying it so that I remember that, yeah. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Yeah, you could go like, or something. I don't know what you want to do. Try to work your voice. All right. Ooh, poor chair. Nice work, guys. Keep it up. You're doing amazing, amazing. 20 seconds left. 20 seconds left. Yes, yes, yes. 10 seconds, 10 seconds. See, it's easy, but it gets your heart going. 3, 2, 1, rest. All right, so we're going 20 seconds off, and we're going back to those squats. Squats with a 1, 2. Squats with a 1, 2. Should be better this time. It's the last one. 5 seconds. We got squats coming up in 3, 2, 1, let's go. There we go. We got some good deep squats in here. I'd clap, but I have a microphone. Yes, amazing. Good work, guys. Good work. Count it out, though. Keep forgetting that voice. We don't want to have a weak voice. Work that voice. Yeah, there we go. Yes. I want everybody outside to be confused as to what's going on in here. Keep it up. Come on. 3, 2, 1, time. Good work. All right, remember, now we're doing those ninja blocks. So we're going outside, knee to elbow. 10 seconds. Yeah. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Up, 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 up. If it's too easy for you, you can add a little pop up to it. Boom. Get on those toes. Yeah. That's it. Keep it up. $15 seconds. Yep. Keep that pace. Keep that pace. 5, 3, 2, 1, rest. All right, again, we got our 2, 3, right kick or right knee. Again, 2, 3, right kick. I was just showing off. I'm sorry. That was rude. 5 seconds. In 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, right kick. Let's go. Count it out, count it out, count it out. 2, 3, right kick. Yeah. All right. Yes. Keep it up, keep it up. It's very quiet in here, guys. It's very quiet. 15 seconds, come on. Didn't they said something about working your voice. If they didn't, they will next, I'm sure. Come on. Three, two, one, last one, last one. All right, so we're going opposite elbow to knee again, trying to keep that pace up. Opposite elbow to knee. 10 seconds. Three, two, one, let's work. Yes. Keep it up, keep it up. Amazing. Keep working. 15 seconds. 15 seconds. Well, it's less now, but 10 seconds. 5. Not time. 5. 3, 2, 1. Time. All right, guys. Just a little cool down. Well, thank you so much, y'all. It's so kind of you. Just a little cool down. We're just going to try to touch our toes and touch the sky. We'll try to figure out which one's further away, our toes or the sky. Yep, just a little cool down. Yep. Wonderful. Let's split the feet just a hair. I guess depends on how long the hair is. Hair's about this long. All right, we're going to go one hand to the hip, other arm overhead, and switch sides. Yeah. Nice and easy pace, just kind of cooling down a little bit. That's it. Good, and time. All right, guys, as far as movement goes, that's all I've got for you, but I would like to take the opportunity just to tell you a little bit about what we do over at Rock Steady Boxing Hilton Head. So there's a few things that are pretty pertinent. First of all, we have mats at our gym. So there's like a nice covering on the floor. So all of this stuff that we do here, or that we did here, obviously we have equipment and other things, but we're able to do it in a much safer environment where we can kind of challenge ourselves without the fear of falling as much as if you were to be on, say, a gym floor, because we have those mats. So that's super helpful with getting up and down and all the things that we do. Second, our program, we really focus on trying to reach that 70% heart rate consistently every day. We do Monday through Friday, every day at 10 a.m. Well, I guess not every day, 5 days a week at 10 a.m. We focus on keeping that heart rate up, getting our strengths up, and augmenting our posture so we're feeling good. And we do a little bit of stretching to try to make sure we're staying loose and stuff and just combat those symptoms of Parkinson's disease. And then the last thing, guys, that I think is honestly the most beautiful thing about our gym is the community of people that we have. We have people who truly support and love each other, and that is incredible. And they come, I mean, like I said, 5 days a week. It is not easy. So my Rock City people, if you could just raise your hand, please, please, please. So we've got quite a few of them in here. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause, because, guys, it's really not easy, as you all know, but they inspire me daily by showing up over and over and over again. And I know that they're sore because I do the workouts. Yeah, so guys, we would love to have you. If you want to come in, you can stop at the booth that we have over there, and a free trial class for everybody. So thank you all so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much, Carter. And please remember, first of all, you all realize this is being recorded. I keep saying it. So if you have to go to the restrooms are right back there. I know there's some up front, but those are a little nicer. And now I would like the panel, we intentionally did this today. We had researchers talking to you about nutrition, diet, and all that. Now you're going to get to hear from people who live with Parkinson's, care partners, and what are some of the things that they do, because you know what, we come up with some different things too, especially with sleep. My husband doesn't sleep, so Right now, if we can get the panel up here, Dr. Hinson will be moderating. She's an excellent moderator. Dr. Hinson, thank you. Lunch will be served later, and remember, don't leave after the program because you need to talk to everybody out there. Rocksteady Boxing has a table, and Dr. Hinson mentioned the intravenous, where you can get the chemicals, the medicine into your stomach. They're here, so you can talk to the rep. Okay. I'm going to shift gears, and I'm going to put my care partner hat on.
Where's Mr. J? Is Jay here? Did Jay come?
No, Jay and Marilyn.
Oh, I thought only Marilyn. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, so Ron. Okay, well then, if you would let Ron sit here and you sit here. It's just in my dining room. People are like fighting over the best seat in the house. It's usually closest to the food source. Yeah, so thank you for having us for a second panel. Are you in for this? Let's do it. All right. So this one is actually going to be the better one because you guys actually know what you're talking about. You're living with Parkinson's every day, and you're living with a person with Parkinson's every day. It's a little circumstantial, but thank you for coming up here on stage and sharing with the audience your secret recipes of living well with Parkinson's disease. It's important. We have over 1 million people in this country living with this disorder, so we'd better ask at least 2 or 3 of them how that actually feels and what they have figured out for themselves. And the reason we're also asking Deanna, you already met, but you have not met Marianne. Marianne, like Deanna, is a care partner for their spouse with Parkinson's disease. So these two kind of go together here, Pete and Marianne. And there's Scott in the corner. And there is my friend Ron. Come on in, Ron. You're sitting right by me. Come, don't leave me alone. Very good. But the reason we're asking the care partners to be part of this as well is because in this country, there are 53 million people who are care partners for a person with whatever not disorder there is, right? Doesn't have to be Parkinson's disease. You can be a care partner for about anything. 53 million people. That's quite a bit. But we found 2 that were willing to come. All the other ones turned us down, so thank you very much. All right, so let me get started here with Ron and with Pete and with Scott. And come back to that, we talked in the last panel a lot about what it was like to be diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And I would like for you to kind of share that moment, but especially emphasize what made you then turn that around and find the energy to be the energetic exercisers that all 3 of these men are out there doing what we actually tell people to do. We always invite the best friends, right? So these actually listen. So we said, well, as a reward, you get to sit here now. But let's start with you, Ron. This was quite a while ago for you. 20 years ago or so, you were diagnosed.
May 5th is the 20th anniversary of being diagnosed, and I consider myself fortunate that I've been able to manage through the challenges that PD has presented, but I have not allowed myself. I allowed myself to have one pity party, and that's it. So now I don't feel like a victim. I just live my life.
One party in 20 years, if it's a self-pity party, is not a lot, so good job with that. Instead of having the pity party, what was your recipe to taking control?
Well, it was challenging. I worked in the newspaper industry, and if anybody remembers newspapers, they went through, I kid, I say it's like the demise of newspapers is like the Hindenburg running into the Titanic, and it was just difficult to continue to perform at the level that I was used to. So I tried to start something that would replace the 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 joys of newspapering, and that was exercise. And it's been quite a journey. I'm by myself. It was not always, but as things turned out, I'm alone. But I have a great support group and friends and people that I do things with, whether it's physical activity or socialization. Is that what you're looking for?
Absolutely. I mean, you perfectly answered that. You know, you can already tell Ron is a mover, right? He doesn't sit still. So for him, you know, giving up the newspaper industry, I mean, that was a high-pressure job. You gave up the constant adrenaline rush. We were talking about hormones earlier. Adrenaline is only good for the moment. If you are chronically exposed to it, it will actually damage and probably lead to a faster acceleration of Parkinson's disease. So getting out of there and finding the time to exercise was just a genius move for you. Amazing job. So Pete here has a more recent experience. So 20 years with PD is amazing. We basically have a person who is relatively newly diagnosed, right? And you probably remember that moment even better. I think his own son, he was breeding the next generation of physicians. So his son is a doctor, trained at MUSC, and kind of helped diagnose you?
He did. So yeah, next week will be a year, so I'm a rookie. I'm still trying to figure what all this means, and by all means, I feel at times that I talk, and many of you that have been dealing with this for a long time are looking at me like the new kid coming up and trying to figure all these things out. But yes, a year ago, my son said, you need to go down to Charleston. I live up near Columbia. He said, go down to Charleston, MUSC, Dr. Hinson, her clinic down there. And I was able to get in within 3 days, which was amazing for me. And I came in, and whoever asked the question about stress and shaking, here it is right here. I think I lost my microphone. Yeah, usually I don't shake this much, and I've been a great public speaker, but now I get worried or I get stressed over all kinds of stupid stuff all the time. But anyways, I came down to Charleston. Dr. Rodriguez Porcel did my study, came in and said, I got some news for you. I said, you have Parkinson's disease. And he kind of paused, like he's done this before. He looked at me, and he said, what does that feel like? Or what do you think? Something to that effect. Well, I thought, that sucks. And then I said, that really stinks. And then I said, well, it could have been worse. And then I said, okay, so what's next? And I had been praying I used to run projects, so I was running a project. I said, at the end of this project, I'm probably going to retire. And I've been praying about it, so I said, okay, I just got my answer. Here's the next stage of my life. As a good project manager, what am I going to do? And put it all together and learn about it and move on.
Very practical gentleman. So, so very recent still for you. So you're learning a lot today then?
I am.
Very good. I'm glad you came. And if you don't mind microphone sharing with Scott over there, we put Scott all the way in the corner. That's not very nice, but somebody had to take that seat, Scott.
Pretty
I know
typical.
you could do it. So share with us a little bit. So your history also goes kind of several years back when you were diagnosed, and you've been doing so many proactive things. Please share how that came about.
Well, I was diagnosed 18 years ago. My story is not unlike most everybody else's story. Looking back, I now know that I had signs of Parkinson's long before that. Just didn't know what they were. The day I was diagnosed is a day I will never forget. I could take you to the sidewalk outside the doctor's office where my wife hugged me. We both cried, and she said, it'll be okay. And I felt sorry for myself for about 5 minutes. And I decided, man, I've got a choice. I knew my life was going to change forever, and it has, but it's just different. I'm not going to say it's all roses, but I'm still getting around doing okay. So I knew my life was going to change forever, but I decided I wanted to try to be a contributor. I say that you can be a contributor or a consumer, and there's nothing wrong with either. Not everybody set out to be a contributor. So I've really kind of just, my whole life is kind of crazy, and by the way, I think that word's really key. everything I do is towards Parkinson's disease. And that's probably a little bit because of the changes in my brain, honestly. I mean, I'm kind of maybe over the top with that, but everything I see, I think, man, that'd work well in the Parkinson's community. Doesn't matter what it is. I've got so many ideas. And back to crazy, I've said before, I think if I'm probably the perfect person to have Parkinson's. I wish I didn't have it, but I don't care what other people think if they see me shake. And I like to use the word confident indifference. People will stare at me, so you know what I do? I walk up to them and say, hey, did you see my shake? And then I touch them and I say, don't worry, it's not contagious. And what's crazy about that, I bet you 90% of the time I do that, I get in a conversation with somebody and they'll say, oh yeah, my aunt, my uncle, my neighbor, my brother, my cousin has PD. And it turns into an opportunity to help them. So I decided to use Parkinson's as something positive to keep me involved in the world.
And we're really thankful you're doing that and setting such a great example. It's been helpful for many people. So let's turn it to the care partners. You know, we just talked about the moment that people were diagnosed and what the initial reaction was. Deanna, what do you see your role in that? Do we have that third microphone, by the way? That would be kind of helpful up here. How do you see your role, or did you see in that early phase of being diagnosed with Parkinson's, how you could support your husband best or motivate him to, instead of a pity party, have an exercise party or another proactive way of dealing with it?
Yes, I think I shared with all of you the way Bubba and I handled it. He went and searched the internet, and I was in my mid-40s, and Bubba was 56. I was late 40s. So we were fairly young, not the typical mid-60s. Bubba was one heck of an athlete, played baseball in college, golfed all the time, had a 70 handicap, great golfer. So I think it impacted him so much because that was his whole life. So I do recall him coming in, and I asked him, what are you doing? Bubba, his white hair, has had it for a very long time, loved the white hair. His face was as white as the hair. So he walked into the porch, and he goes, Deanna, I am in a wheelchair in 6 months, and here he is 56 years old, and I am dead in a year. And I said, what are you doing? We are very interdependent. That's one thing about our relationship. We have it's changed. Interdependent, where I did continue to do my things and he did his, but we always came together with the family. I loved it. That was a significant change with Parkinson's. But I said, Bubba, stop surfing the internet, and that's why we found the foundation. And honestly, he continued to play golf while he could, just like the rest of you. But it was a game changer for him, and until we learned it's not gonna kill you, like Bubba would say to you right now, it wasn't a death sentence, even though he felt like it. So I think he was in the grieving stage for about a year. It's like when somebody dies. It's a grieving stage about a year, year and a half, and then all of a sudden, I can beat this. And that's the road that we have chosen.
How was that for you, Marianne? It was, your husband is very mildly affected because he was just diagnosed. He's not even yet on levodopa. But, still, it's a different mindset now, right? You're looking at things differently.
It's a different mindset now. Initially, it was a shock. I've been in healthcare 42 years. I never had a patient, I'm a nurse practitioner, never had a Parkinson's patient. And then went through the stages of grief. I was not very nice at the beginning. I said awful things like, you die on me, I'm getting 100 chihuahuas, that's it. Or, you need to stop drinking Diet Coke right now. But I, probably a couple of weeks after that, I'm like, I'm retiring. And then I'm retiring. We're going to start doing everything we ever wanted to do now. And what do we have to do to keep us both healthy? And Peter's always been healthy. He had 27 years in the military, came to this other career, always been very healthy, very active. And so that's why it was a real shock to all of us, but also a blessing because he knew how to exercise, but he tailored exercise to help him with Parkinson's. So in my looking at what I could help with, I read the literature. Yeah, I got on the internet some. And that's not a really good idea. Just kind of follow what Parkinson's people are telling you. And I could control diet. That is where I came into what I shop for, what I cook for, what I gave him. And so his routine is that he exercises in the morning. I prepare him food. And basically, he was never a breakfast person. So it's kind of like a smoothie, but I can have anywhere from 24 fruits and vegetables in it, and it's really heavily on the berries, nuts, and 5 different kinds of nuts, seeds. Protein, I use a organic plant-based protein. He's not on medication, but I make sure that he gets a good amount of protein in the smoothie. And it's like an every morning thing. And, at least I know if he didn't eat well during the day when I was not there, he had gotten a good amount of fruits and vegetables and things, and, walnuts. Here's a handful. Let's keep on going. So that's just like my role, I think, as far as helping with the diet portion of it, being a cheerleader with him in the gym. And he can go on and tell you about the extensive exercises that he does, but that's just my walk with this.
And I just wanted to add another thing that is really important. Our youngest was 13, so our oldest was 21 when Bubba was diagnosed. And we told him right away. I know that is something that a lot of families go through. Do we tell our children? And the other thing that happened, I think back 20 years, Scott, I don't know if you and Kelly did this, but we started thinking of family members going back. Bubba, I mean, he was talking to his sisters who had Parkinson's. How did I get it? And it reminds me that we haven't talked about the genetic testing that the Parkinson's Foundation is doing. But I do want to tell you, it's only 13% of people carry some sort of genetic. So it's not, Bubba was not genetic. So we're still, what in the world caused it? But we were going through his family history.
Yeah, that's a good point with the family history. I just want to clarify, though, there's different types of genes. Some where the gene is enough to cause the disease, and that's about 5 to 10% of people with Parkinson's disease, so it's kind of hard to find those. But then there's all these genes that are just risk factors for Parkinson's. And, I would suppose Baba might have one of those. We've just, with a panel in PD Generation, we're testing for 7 genes. There might be 700 that we have not tested for. So we think that somebody has a predisposition gene and something else happens to then manifest the Parkinson's disease. Yeah. So let's get a little bit more prescriptive. So my heritage is German, as you hear by my accent, so I like to go kind of by the book. So let's talk a little bit of what the to-do list would be if you're diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And we have several members here on the panel who can really share what worked for them. So Scott, with the Rocksteady, right? So Rocksteady boxing, everybody has heard about, but a lot of you have never been to it. What is it like to go to such a session? What does it actually feel like to you to go through? And can we first all stand up, please, and make sure we're not sitting on the third microphone? No. Yes, we are. Yay.
Who was sitting on it?
I was suspecting it was Pete, but I didn't want to say anything. Yeah, you got it. All right.
So as
Scott.
far as Rocksteady, I think the young man that was up here, what was his first name? Carter. Carter did a great job. It's a community. I think that's probably one of the most powerful aspects of it. It is a community. If somebody's missing, they're like, hey, where's Frank this week? So there's so much togetherness. You share information. We tease each other, but we also get the heart rate up. And that's, to me, the real critical part. The exercise, getting the heart rate up. If you're in the Beaufort area, we have a Rocksteady type class once a week in Habersham. If you want to know more about that, you can see me afterwards. I can't say enough about it. It's an exceptional program that I would encourage everybody to learn more about.
So with Parkinson programs, what we like to see is that certain elements are met, right? We want to work on balance. Dr. DeTurk was saying earlier that Rocksteady boxing can improve balance. We want to work on reaction time. We want to work on agility. We want to work on speed, endurance. We want to get the heart rate up, as Scott was saying. But we also want to train our voice and our thinking. And in the boxing class, you will see, you have to shout out what you're doing. Jab, 1, 2, 3. also very Germanic kind of. So it trains your voice box, very important element. And sometimes you have to hit the bag in a certain sequence, and you have to be cognitively really on your game to be able to do that. So it really trains the synapses, doesn't it? And then there's the camaraderie, you know? You're not going, so my colleagues in physical therapy will hate me now, but I'm gonna say you're not going to a lame physical therapy session. You are going to boxing, and you're gonna box with some other guys and girls who wanna beat Parkinson's just like you. Isn't that right?
I mean, the active part of it, the movement part of it is off the chart. And I want to be clear, we're not punching each other in the head. It's non-contact boxing. One of our trainers actually puts a full vest on that's padded, and we get to punch him in the gut as hard as we want. It doesn't even faze him. But on the voice part, Dr. Henson, one thing we do in the class a lot is when we're warming up, especially, we'll go around and say the alphabet, or maybe say the alphabet backwards, and then you have to name one thing. So if you have A, you have to say apple or whatever. And that sounds really easy, but when you're multitasking, that's challenging, which is good, and we have to use a loud voice or we have to do it over again.
And depending on how large the boxing program is that you might join, they're supposed to have, if the class is large enough, different levels. There might be some really fit people in there who can do about anything, and there might be people who might to do this seated. And that is totally fine. If you have a large enough group, you can kind of separate these groups so everybody gets the maximum out of that of what they can safely do. And smaller groups do it all together, and the instructors will help you. One other important thing to know about boxing, and this relates to Ron, you were sharing that you're alone with it in the sense that you don't have a spouse that would necessarily go to boxing with you, but there are, so at boxing, we like to have a corner man or woman who helps the boxer go through the exercises, but if you don't bring one, they're gonna have one for you. So at the MUSC Wellness Center, for example, we have a bunch of physical therapy students, exercise professionals who are the corner people who help people with Parkinson's disease, and you are never alone at a Rocksteady boxing event. So really nice to know. However, not everybody wants to go to Rocksteady boxing, and you don't have to. There's plenty of other things you can do. So when I see Ron, he's kind enough to trust me to be his doctor. And the usual appointment starts like this. We're getting on a telemedicine appointment. I said, "Hi, Ron, how are you?" And he's like, he's like all sweaty. He's like, "Just got off the pickleball court, doctor." I'm like, "Really? How long were you on the court for?" Like 2 or 3 hours. So this is what you do. You play pickleball.
I do.
You love it?
I do. I actually try to do two things a day. Pickleball has been, I think, most people, I think, didn't even know what pickleball was several years ago, and now it's like the fastest growing sport out there. There's some challenges. We all know that we're prone to having balance issues, so you got to be careful if you increase the intensity of exercise. Beware of the flaws in the thinking there's nothing can happen to me. But anyway, back to 2 things a day, and you can incorporate your own whatever turns you on, whatever you like to do. But pickleball, swimming, strength training, lifting weights, bike riding, walking instead of driving to a place that's close by, if you wanted to go to a restaurant or a bar, not a restaurant. Will this be PC? I always just stayed in the car whenever people would go, my friends would go to a bar.
Yeah.
But that mixing it up has been a good solution for me. It keeps your weight down, keeps your heart rate up, and you can design whatever type of program you want, but just move, just do something, and it's a lot of fun. Most people that I play pickleball with, they don't think about Parkinson's. I don't preface my, hey guys, saying, "Oh, I'm Ron and I have Parkinson's." take it easy on me. And I want them to play as hard as they would against me, as they would anyone. So anyway.
And they better do that because you're really good at it. And so is Scott, and I'll come back to Pete in just a minute if you pass the microphone. Scott always says, I love smashing this ball at people who think I can't play because I have Parkinson's disease. So you get a real pleasure out of that, don't you?
Yeah, I did do it a little different than Ron. I oftentimes will introduce myself. I'm Scott. I have Parkinson's. Don't be worried if you see me shaking. Because number one, I want them to think, oh, I'm going to kick this guy's. And in reality, my favorite, this happened the other night. There's the world champion in doubles pickleball. Now, he was older than me. And I hit one. I drove it right in his chest. And what do they call that, Ron? A body, there's a name for that.
Yeah, there is.
But anyway, that felt so stinking good to see that guy complain. And he said, that's not very nice. I said, dude, I'm not out here to play nice. I'm out here to win. So there's just some there's some satisfaction to be able to compete. I love to keep score. And you know, when you have Parkinson's, there's so many things we can't do maybe real efficiently, but we can try. And keeping score is just, I want to win. I don't care what it is. So yes, I like to do some of those body smacks.
But then Ron also put a little dampener on this and said there's also safety, right? So if I should, if Pete said to me today, I was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and is it safe for me to play pickleball or box? What would I say to him, right? So I would say you need to think about how you play and how you box, because there are certain things you should not be doing. You should not be getting lobbed and then backtrack and think you can run backwards and safely make it to the ball. What you do is you say, well done to your opponent, and you give him that 1 point, but you smash the next one. But seriously, we need to adapt this to a level. We need to engage our doctor in that discussion. Our cardiologist, am I going to have a heart attack on the pickleball court? If they say no, that's a good thing. And then ask your neurologist if there's any adaptations you need to do. And then you can go ahead and play. We have not let you report what proactive things you've done to not even take levodopa.
So I'll first take you of where I was. A year ago when I was diagnosed, I was running a big project for the city of Tallahassee, Florida. I live up in Columbia. So I was traveling 2-3 weeks out of the month. So I was gone most of the time, living in hotels. And for the most part, I always liked exercising after work. So my common thing would be after work to go walk, and I would walk an hour and a half. When all this started, I started feeling more and more anxious, and I was just hating being inside an office. I was dying to get outside. So when I realized I couldn't quite do my job anymore, I quit my job in July, and I said, now they're telling me to go out there and move. This is great. So I felt like a new person. Now I had the whole day to go do stuff, and I didn't have to sit behind a computer. And I'm still living that euphoria to this day. I don't know if how long it's gonna last, but I was feeling very fortunate. So right off the bat, I started sleeping much better. Before I was go to bed at midnight, get up at 7, thinking all night long about my project and problems and meetings and project schedules. Now I go to bed around 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I sleep till 8 in the morning. And frankly, I sleep very well. One of my biggest concerns at the beginning was, how am I going to sleep with, and I usually don't shake this much, so I'm making it look worse than it is. But I sleep very well. Marianne makes me that smoothie in the morning, which I'm glad she didn't tell you all the other stuff that she puts in it, because I don't want to know either. But it's real good. I go into our gym. We built a little gym, not too impressive, so don't think it's that big of a deal, but we got a little gym on the detached garage. And I spend about 30 minutes stretching from the top of my head down to my toes. And I feel a lot better today than I did a year ago. I used to always have stress feelings on my shoulders, and my neck used to bother me. Doing this every day, I feel 100% better. Then after that, I learned, and I hope I've been careful how I say this, but when I first started this, I went to a Parkinson's 101, learn about Parkinson's class, and I ran into a lot of folks that all day long they did nothing but Parkinson's stuff. So there was a lady at the meeting talking to the neurologist saying, what does my husband need to do at 9 and at 10 and at 11 and at 12? And And again, I'm a rookie, I'm still learning. I said, I'm going to do all the stuff I need to do, but I'm not going to let Parkinson's run my life. I'm going to live my life with Parkinson's. Oof. Sorry about that. And then, so after I exercise, I've been working with a therapist to get stress out of my brain. And it's worked real good. I have a set time of the day where I go into my office and I think through what's bothering me, and I get it out of the way. So in the middle of the night, if I wake up, I go, nope, 10 o'clock tomorrow, I'll deal with that. And it's working pretty good. Then I go about my day. We live out in the country, so I'm always outside doing something, which is great. I'm not behind that computer. And around 4, 5, or 6, depending on the weather and the time of the year, I walk about 4.5 to 6.5 miles. Or I get on my kayak and I go kayak for about an hour and a half or something like that. Come back and eat dinner. But that's my routine. I'm just doing, it's great. They told me get out there and move. I'm moving, doing stuff I like to do, that I love to do.
Well, you are very smart. It almost sounds like Parkinson has been liberating you from the corporate world.
It did.
I'm getting inspired here.
Like I said, this may run out, but so far it's been 8 months and it hasn't yet.
That's really nice what you shared. Very well done. So we're turning it over to you again, so you can participate in this conversation. This is how I would look at it. So we will not share. No, we are sharing our microphones, and I can actually go down there and take questions, and you go the other side. I'll cover this side of the room. And raise your hand if you would like to ask any of the panelists anything or me anything.
We have our first question over here.
So my wife's problem that bothers me the most as a caregiver is her voice trailing off. And so how do I help her and remind her to do better without becoming excessive and annoying?
I'll let the care partners take that first. Marianne?
I'm sorry, I'm not very good at it. I will say, I didn't hear you. Can you talk louder? Or okay, I'll tell him I didn't hear you. Will you talk louder? Will you talk louder? And I'm still new, but things are really frustrating to me as a caregiver because I can't fix that. And I don't want to hurt their feelings. And then here today, as they were doing the exercise and as you were talking about calling out the ABCs, maybe we'll do that around the house. You think so? You know, do some things to improve the voice around the house. But it is very frustrating because I understand that's something you've got to practice, and I can't practice for them.
And Marianne, the same thing. I guess, it's interesting, 1 year and 20 years here. The thing that I do with Bubba and I, humor is imperative. We laugh all the time. Now, we get mad, but we laugh a lot. And we love to sing. Bubba has a beautiful tenor voice. I cannot carry a tune, and I don't care. So we sing a lot in the car. I mean, people are looking, and what are you doing? The other thing is, and I do very quick, and I said, Bubba, I can't hear you. And I don't know about any of you, but if he has terrible dry mouth from the medications. I mean, it is, people were asking me, can we come up with a drug for this? It's like cotton. So that is what is affecting his speech more than anything. But I can't even imagine. But I'm like, Bubba, you're mumbling. So it really is just being honest. And I know sometimes, I tell you, I once heard somebody say, 95% of the time as a care partner, we're really good because you really love. This is love at its best. But you have that 5% where you just get angry. And it's okay. I remember somebody told me that. So when Bubba, I can't hear you. You're yelling at me. And I'm like, well, sorry, okay. But it is about humor.
Marianne, I was going to tell you, the difference between 1 year diagnosis and 18 years of diagnosis is my wife, Kelly, really just doesn't listen to me anymore. I'm serious. She said, you mumbled. So I said, did you hear what I said? She'll just walk away sometimes. And it's kind of joking, but I was also going to share with you, there's LSVT, Lee Silverman Voice Training. Highly recommended. I don't know what Dr. Henson would say, but it can change your life. It's work, but it's really valuable.
So the LSVT Loud is a great speech therapy for Parkinson's disease. But what I'm also going to tell you is, essentially, in Parkinson's caregiving, we have the excuse to be nagging for the following reason. Oftentimes, a person with Parkinson's is not aware of speaking softly. So the brain cannot really tell this is soft or loud, and therefore, if I don't know I'm speaking softly, why would I speak louder, right? So you telling your spouse that they are speaking softly is increasing their awareness, and they're like, oh, well, I'll better speak up then. And so then they can adjust. But remember, it comes with Parkinson's that we are unaware. Same with leaning. A lot of my patients lean to their more affected side, but they're not aware of it. You can only correct it if your spouse is kind enough, or your pickleball partner, to say, straighten out, and then they perfectly can. So it's not nagging, it's a helpful gesture.
I have a question about DBS, or deep brain stimulation, if any of you have had it or if it's been recommended, and what the latest wisdom is on that.
So nobody on this panel has had DBS, unless Baba has had it? He was going to, but... He was going to. And share with us in a second. I just wanted to bring everybody on the same plate, and then you share that was going to experience. Deep brain stimulation is one of the advanced therapies we have available and have had available for Parkinson's disease for about 20 years. Essentially, we're using a pacemaker-like device that gets implanted right here under the collarbone, same place where cardiac pacemakers sit. So you can't have both in the same place, but you could have a DBS pacemaker here for Parkinson's. The electrode gets tunneled under your skin, gets inserted into that area of the brain that Dr. DeTurk was talking about that's essential for Parkinson's symptom control. And then we as physicians can program the device so that it gives the correct electric signals to override the abnormal brain signaling that's going along with Parkinson's disease. Several things to know about DBS. It is best done in a person who does not have significant cognitive impairment. It is best done in a person who is still walking and ambulatory. So you don't want to miss that window. Usually we consider it after about 5 years of disease, when we have one of two scenarios, either terrible tremor, it works really well for tremor, or these up and down fluctuations where we earlier said, how do I know I'm in an off period, right? So if you know exactly when you're in an off period because you're having many of them, or you're having a lot of dyskinesias, that's when DBS is a great consideration. And you would have to come to a movement disorder specialty center like MUSC or others in the area to get best advice on that. Share with us, Deanna, Baba was considering this at some point. Tell us about that.
You know, like again, I'm reminding you, 20 years, it's been great. It hasn't been great. No, but he's beating it. And about 2-3 years ago, cognitively, there's been a real decline. Bubba's going to be 75. So the other thing that we're experiencing right now is this age on top of Parkinson's. It's very different than when he was 56. He was considering it, but cognitively there's been a real decline, partly because he constantly is getting kidney stones and hip replacements and anesthesia. I really believe that. And we didn't think you have to take a 4-hour test, you know. And we said, Bubba, you can't do that. So, and Bubba doesn't have tremors, by the way. Most people associate DBS with tremors, and we did. But when they said, no, this is for his dyskinesia, and this is for, you know, things that will help him, and we're like, oh. So he's not doing it, we're doing other things. And I do want to say for cognitive decline, you know, Scott, you mentioned it, it is a big part of Parkinson's, you forget. I tell everybody, Bubba and I play Farkle every night. We used to play Rummy Cube, it got a little too complicated and he took too long. But we play this game every night. And I get impatient and I want to add it all up. If you don't know Farkle, think of Yahtzee. But it really keeps him going. But there are times when he's off, Dr. Henson, he's just, I said, Sweet Pea, do you see a 5? Do you see anything? So anyway, I just share that with you. That really helps us.
Good, good, good. We have a question there, and then we're coming here next.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to let everybody know about something that my daughter and my husband did for me. I'm still fairly independent, and I drive. but I get lost. And I was a 911 dispatcher, and I know the county like the back of my hand. But they put a GPS tracker on my phone. So if I call them and say, I'm lost, I don't know where I'm at, they can get me home. And I would recommend to everyone, if you have a loved one that's still driving and still has some cognitive issues like I have and gets lost every now and then, is a good thing to have on your phone, because they can pinpoint where you are and how to get you home, because it is really scary.
Advances in technology, amazing. 911 dispatcher, that's puts you in a good position to be driving there. I do have to say at this point, otherwise I wouldn't be a good doctor, if you have any concerns of your driving safety, please discuss with your neurologist what their opinion is on your driving. Usually the best advice that's very simple to get is if the person that's riding with you in the passenger seat is scared of you driving, you should not be driving. And I'm not joking. Yeah. All right, Jen, we're taking your question.
First of all, I have a comment or a resource to share. The Mind Diet, if any of you have Kindle Unlimited, their cookbooks are free on Kindle Unlimited. Just public service announcement. The other thing is, I'm interested in knowing, do any of you have an outside helper that comes to you? My husband was diagnosed at age 81 with Parkinson's, and everybody is telling me, you have to get somebody to help you. Get somebody to come in and help you. And I'm curious as to what your response is to that.
Deanna, do you want to start with that?
In-home care. And you know, it's interesting because we are at that point. My husband typically travels with me. I'm in Winston-Salem. It's a long journey now for him to be attending these. So we are fortunate to have our children, but we have to go beyond that because our children work full-time. I cannot burden, and I do feel like that, but we're a team. So we are looking into home care, but I want to share this. We do have long-term care insurance. We invested as soon as he got Parkinson's disease, and they do pay up to like $120 a day. We are now at that point, so when I leave, that we want to get somebody in just to remind him about his meds. We don't need a nurse, just somebody there. But let me tell you, the man is hard-headed. That is my biggest thing with him. All his falls and everything is his brain thinks he can pull this huge weed out, and he can't, and he falls, and we end up in the emergency room. He's hard-headed and stubborn, which I love him for, but he realizes now, okay, you know, because it causes me stress as a care partner.
So, you know, Ron made a good point. A caregiver for what, or you said something like that. And these three men are lucky enough to be pretty much doing everything on their own. But what I wanted to say is that don't ask for help too late, basically, as a care partner. The help could be as trivial as just being you when you're not there, and when you want to go and get your hair done, or to the nail salon, or to the store, as trivial as that, that somebody is just there. So your partner with Parkinson's is not alone, should they fall or whatever could happen, and just sit there with them, and just take that time away and not be fearful that something might happen while you're not there and you already feel guilty and can't enjoy your little appointment in the spa. But it's very, very important for the care partner to get out. Did you want to say something, Ron?
No.
But I wanted to say something to Ron. So we've kind of pointed out a few times that you don't have a care partner, you know, making you smoothies in the morning. I thought when you said that, and it really painted that contrast, Marianne, when you were talking about the smoothie making, and it's very nice. It's very, very nice. And, you know, not having that, it's just, not the smoothie particularly, but, you know, tell us a little bit about this being in your house the only person dealing with this.
What I meant when I said no, that I don't have anything to add, it's I don't have anyone, a real need for someone to come in yet. And I am taking applications for girlfriend. Well, let me give a shout out to all the ladies out there. I'm really very charming whenever I'm not shaking like a leaf on a tree. But that to have someone come in, I went through a 10-year period with my mom had Alzheimer's, and she lived a long and healthy life. But I saw what she needed, some in-home care, and eventually went through the various stages of memory care and skilled nursing. Anyway, what was the question again?
I guess, are you, do you have any fears of dealing with Parkinson's by yourself?
Just really falling, because you made a good point. Backing up is not a good thing in pickleball. It's lobbing is a strategy, but it's difficult to run backwards and with PD. So let the ball go.
That's right.
Get
That's
them on
right.
the next point.
And coming back to the 911 dispatcher over there, and I don't know what your name was. I couldn't read your name tag. But coming back to the driving and being by yourself for just a minute, what I found is that people hesitate way too much to take people up on their offer to help. If you are in a position where you cannot drive and your neighbor says, "May I drive you to your appointment?" you say yes, because they are very happy to help you. Don't think you're imposing. Turning them down actually might be rude. So maybe I can encourage you that way, but people really mean it, really mean it.
Hey, Dr. Henson, I want to just, on the conversation about help, this is a little different twist. I think one of the best things my wife does is she says, "Oh, he can do it." And I'm not minimizing the need for help. Everybody's at a different stage in life, and Parkinson's, there are times you need help. But I have this expression, it's easier not to. So for me, it's easier to not walk right, to drag my right leg. It's just more comfortable. It's easier to not use my right hand. I can come up with a whole list of things like that. But I'm better off if I force myself to do those things. So again, that thought was just triggered when we were asking about help. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't ask for help and we shouldn't help people, but my wife's not real easy on me in some ways, in a good way, if that makes sense. And I'm grateful for that.
And I'm going to just add on that, because I know we're almost out of time with Bubba. The one thing is, because we talk about rock steady boxing, he did all that, but he's unable to do it. What he does now is vacuum. I know it sounds crazy, but when we go to the PA and the movement, what kind of movement are you doing now, Bubba? He's vacuuming. He is doing everything that he can, and also he's helping me because I work full time. So I agree completely with you, Scott. I don't want to take he wants to help, and I can't take that away from him. I just got to figure out how and what's the safest way. And very quickly, I have to tell you, sleep. You all talked about sleep. Silk pajamas, silk sheets. I am telling you right now, Bubba, okay? Can you imagine Bubba? Bubba is Bubba, he's a wonderful man. I finally said, we're getting you silk pajamas and sheets, because I used to have to wake up and turn him over because he couldn't turn. It works. Try it.
So we're leaving you with this image of Baba in silk pajamas. Very good. Thank you, Deanna. Very inspiring. Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Marianne, Pete, Ron, Deanna, for all your input. You're just giving us a lot of energy and leaving this symposium today on a high note. Thank you to the Parkinson Foundation for organizing all of this. You're the best.
And thank you all. And really, this was truly in partnership with Dr. Hinson and getting everybody, and Encompass Health. Wayne, Renee, and Lindsay, thank you. We have one more panel. Then we're going to have lunch. Lunch is in the back. And please stick around. There are tables back there. You can come back here. Mingle with all the exhibitors and the sponsors. And everyone on the panel will be around. So if you have any questions, and I can tell you where on Amazon to buy those silk pajamas.
I was like, oh gosh, it's not over. Good afternoon. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We are so happy to have you here. If you can hang in just a little bit longer, it's the last panel before lunch. I know you're probably getting hungry and it's probably close to time to start taking those medications, right? Don't miss out on those medications while we're up here talking, but we're hoping to give you some great information. My name is Renee Bannon. I am not an expert. I am here to lead a conversation with the experts over here on the couch, and hopefully you'll be able to learn. We've actually had a couple of topics come up from your questions that they're actually going to talk through. So I'm going to introduce them, or I actually may let themselves introduce themselves, and then we will get rolling with our last panel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen Glazer. I am the Senior Speech and Language Pathologist or Speech Therapist at Encompass in Bluffton. I co-lead the Parkinson's team at our hospital and have learned a lot, actually, from the symposium we did about a year ago as well. So I'm excited to talk about speech, voice that was mentioned earlier, swallowing, and just communication and cognition. So yeah, nice to meet you, everybody.
Thank you, Ellen.
Good morning. My name is Bob Scudda. I'm the owner of Scudda Advocacy Group. We provide independent advocacy for people that need some help and some direction. And I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm Rhonda Hyatt. I work for the Area Agency on Aging. I'm the family caregiver advocate. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and I am still learning a lot about Parkinson's at this time.
Well, we are so excited to have all three of you here today discussing some of these really important topics. So our last, panel is really discussing planning for the future. And we've hit on those things a couple of times, but this panel is going to really go into a little bit more detail so that hopefully you can really know what the next steps are for planning for the future. So Ellen, I've been working with Ellen for several years now at Encompass Health. So happy to have Ellen on our team there. So Parkinson's disease does really often lead to speech difficulties. There's swallowing difficulties and speech difficulties. And someone had actually asked the question about such a soft voice. Let's talk a little bit about the speech difficulties first. What are some of the common communication challenges that you see in patients? And then how do you typically address those in therapy?
Yeah, so these are great questions. We've talked a lot so far about physical therapy and movement and exercise, and that is very, very important. But I want to bring up the statistic that 75% of people that have Parkinson's will experience changes in their voice, their speech, or how they communicate at some point. Of the 10 early signs of actually diagnosing Parkinson's, 2 of them pertain to my areas. So if she gave one away. The low voice is one of those, and the second one is a masked, facial expression. So if you're somebody who has Parkinson's and people will say, oh, I'm not talking to him, maybe he's mad at me, or maybe he's not interested in what I'm saying. Our body language, our facial expressions are imperative to how we relay communication. So be aware of that fact in your loved ones. With a voice quality that is, pretty low, kind of like was mentioned before, I work with so many people who have Parkinson's, and typically they're most often male, some females too, and they will say, well, I speak fine, but my spouse really can't hear me. It's her problem. So if that's happened to you, that is quite common, kind of like what Dr. Henson had said earlier. So, my biggest thing when you go to speak, if you have Parkinson's, is be mindful of what your voice sounds like first. If you want to record your voice, play it back to your own self, make your own assessment of that, and be your own advocate. Staying hydrated will also help your vocal cords, the muscles here for just functional speech. And be mindful of your posture, as I am hyper aware right now speaking to you. Sitting up, taking a deep breath before you speak. Your lungs are the powerhouse behind your voice, kind of the gas to the engine, so to speak. Also check your hearing. You know, it's communication is both ways, right? You have to be able to hear what people are telling you to then project your voice. You know, finding a speech therapist who is trained, like we have been talking about, a therapist specifically trained in a Parkinson's voice technique is very important. So I know Scott Ryder had talked about LSVT Loud. There's also a program called Speak Out. That's what I'm personally certified in and I use with Parkinson's patients a lot. There's great research. Just by working on your voice, you actually can work on the swallowing. People think I'm crazy that I'm a speech therapist and I help people swallow, which we'll get to in a minute. But the muscles are the same, right? Your voice box here is the same for swallowing. So that's how it makes a speech therapist a specialized person to treat that. But you have a voice. People need to hear it. Take control of it. Be proactive. Don't wait until later and years down the road, you know, see someone often for that.
That's awesome. What a great idea, recording yourself, right? To have that self-awareness. Has anybody ever thought about doing that and check their own voice out? That's a great idea, a great tip to think about, just so you kind of have that awareness for yourself. So let's go from our speech, let's go over to our swallowing. Let's think about some of the swallowing challenges. Of course, dysphagia is very common in Parkinson's and can really lead to some serious complications, such as aspiration pneumonia. So Ellen, tell us, how does speech therapy really help manage both the communication, of course, but then also the swallowing safety?
Yeah, so swallowing is super important. There are a couple of kind of red flags that I want to bring up for the people that are listening and also from home. Drooling. A lot of times people will say, Ellen, why am I drooling so much? Do I have more saliva? Coughing when you're eating or drinking, or it could just be like all the time when you're swallowing. If you feel food is collecting around in your mouth or maybe falling out of your mouth, those are all signs of trouble swallowing or dysphagia that you really should go see a speech therapist to have a one-on-one assessment. So if food or liquid or even anything, vomit, enters the airway and goes underneath it, that is called aspiration. If it stays down, whatever that stuff is that goes into your lungs, it goes down far enough and does not come out, people with Parkinson's are at a high risk of developing a pneumonia associated with aspiration. This is a fact that aspiration pneumonia is the leading cause of death with people with Parkinson's disease. And not a lot of people know that. So just like your exercise and your diet and everything that we're doing, you know, be mindful of these red flags that might be happening and go and see a speech therapist. Get a referral, call your neurologist, your primary care doctor, and really get it checked out by someone who's specialized. Drooling also, some different tips for that. If you're drooling a lot, you know, it can lead to, you know, like skin irritation, or, you know, fungal or bacterial infection, and even that aspiration pneumonia. You are actually not producing more saliva, you just aren't swallowing as often as you used to. Parkinson's will impact the automatic movements of the body. Smiling, swallowing, your arm swing, even when you're walking, or you don't think about that, right? It's automatic. And so we have to make sure that you are, you know, paying attention and more mindful of when you're swallowing. I had a patient who would have like a toothpick or a piece of candy in his mouth that would just help promote that awareness of something in the mouth to help swallowing. Sugar-free is best. A lot of sugar will actually increase saliva production, so be mindful of that.
Oh, that's great. That's very interesting. And really, you know, for caregivers, be cognizant of recognizing some of those symptoms, those red flags that Ellen was talking about. You may not notice them yourself, but your loved one or your caregiver, that's something for you to be on the lookout while they are eating, or if you see excessive saliva happening, that's something to definitely keep an eye out. So thanks, Ellen, for that too. So, Ellen, you know, improving the speech mechanics, that's really therapy also boosts self-esteem and social engagement, which is obviously very, very important and something to make sure that we're also keeping in mind. So can you give us a couple of examples of how improved communication has positively impacted your patients' confidence, independence, and really their quality of life?
Oh, totally. So the way we communicate and how you present yourself is, a positive self-concept. People who have Parkinson's will also really struggle with depression and anxiety. Instead of going to a church or religious function or even going out to dinner, you may feel shyer. You may not want to have to deal with it. And I've worked with people who have Parkinson's that used to be CEOs or vice presidents of these companies. One guy months ago told me, I used to command people with my voice. This is what I did for a living. And I looked at him and I was like, you can get this back. There is a lot of really cool research by doing exercises with your voice. You can get it back and it will stay back. It'll help prevent, the trouble with the swallowing as well. So, be active, have a tune-up, if you will. Check in with a speech therapist, annually, if not more frequently, to help with that.
That's great. So, Ellen is really representing the speech language pathology side, that discipline of therapy. But of course, you all are probably very familiar with the other therapy disciplines. There's also physical therapy and occupational therapy, which are all three extremely important in decreasing the progression of the disease, as you heard the physicians discussing this morning. What I wanted to really hear from Ellen is, we're both in the rehabilitation world, and so we see the importance of the collaboration between the therapy disciplines. So Ellen, can you just kind of speak to how important that collaboration is between those three disciplines?
Oh, totally, yes. Especially at Encompass, where I work full-time as a treating speech and language pathologist. People who are returning home that need to dress themselves, feed themselves. How can we, work together to make it more efficient? That tune-up I'm talking about, if you're really struggling with, putting your pants on, you're spilling food, finding out a specialist that can help you with that. Maybe there's a tool you could use that can make it so much easier. But really, OT, occupational therapy, PT, physical therapy, and SLP or ST, speech therapy, we all work together to give ideas and help you, like Renee said, delay the disease progression.
That's great. Thank you, Ellen. So we are going to move over to Bob. Bob, thank you so much for being here. He is with the SCUDA Advocacy Group. And it really kind of rolls right into your topics of trying to really understand, managing Parkinson's disease. It really does require, coordination between multiple providers, multiple types of different resources that you have available. And how do you do that? That's kind of overwhelming at times, isn't it? Trying to figure out how am I supposed to get all of these services together. And so there are groups out there, and I would love to hear from Bob. So Bob, really tell us, how do advocates help individuals with Parkinson's and their care partners navigate the healthcare system to ensure that they can follow their physician's orders, get orders for all of these therapy disciplines we're talking about?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks again for having me here. Any diagnosis, including Parkinson's, is scary. And I'm sure a lot of people in this room feel that you lose control and independence to some degree when something happens, not only Parkinson's, but any health issue. By planning and knowing who to turn to and having resources that can point you in the right direction and rethinking a couple things, you can have a better life, and you can deal with your Parkinson's or whatever disease you have or progression of a disease you have by putting certain things in order. And it can range from your legal paperwork, who's your power of attorney, who's your successor power of attorney, both healthcare and durable. It can arrange how your properties are titled. For example, it could be in one person's name and not the other person's name. So there's steps you can take now to make sure that when you have more problems or you're under duress, you already have everything set up. If you have somebody that's helping to advocate for you, they're certainly going to look out for you and help you with medications or getting refills, setting up appointments, sort of getting ahead of the curve and knowing what's coming next, and suggest who might be good support groups or caregivers or can help you along the way. Again, an independent person that can advocate for you and look out for those things is really important. There's lists and lists of things you could be overwhelmed with that you're going to face with any disease. But if you can put some of your other parts of your life in place and talk with people, your spouse, partner, your family, or an independent person, that this is what I want, and this is how I know what's coming, but this is how I want to be able to control my life. We think you're going to have a better outcome because you're going to know that there is some plan. I do have some independence because I made a plan, and somebody's there to carry it out. So that goes with your financial, your medical, your healthcare, your legal. I'm not a lawyer, but we point people in the right direction for those things because it's really gives you a peace of mind that you take care of that early and you're in a good position as you move forward.
Yes, thank you, Bob. And thinking through, some of the challenges are really when you go to the physician's office, right, and you're kind of talking through some of your symptoms and maybe they are prescribing you some new medications or new dosages. Having someone there, just like what we heard, if you are alone, or we're not all expert patients, right? We're all just regular people trying to understand it. And so having someone there even to just explain, what did I just hear? What did they just tell me? What did they recommend for me? That's what an advocate can do for you. And there are resources in the area for that, which is very helpful. Obviously, you do not ever want to end up in the hospital, right? But when you do, making the decisions for your care afterwards, whether you are being recommended an inpatient rehabilitation facility or home health, or it's starting to look like in-home care, advocates can also assist with the communication with your case managers and discharge planners in the hospital to help you understand, to help you with those next steps that can really be very overwhelming in trying to make those decisions, especially if you're making those decisions alone. So, Bob, I don't know if you want to speak to any of that.
No, just in general, by having that plan will give you some degree of peace of mind as you go through any type of progression or go through your life even without disease of any kind that you're aware of. It just having a plan gives you that peace of mind. So when you lay your head down on your pillow, you think, okay, I have this worked out. I know this is what's going to happen. We have our assets going to this person or whatever the case may be, but it helps to have all that laid out ahead of time.
Yeah. So you're kind of touching on some of the, financial pieces of this and planning for your future and trying to figure out how, as the disease progresses, how you're going to be able to continue to care for yourself or what are the next steps with that. So Bob, can you speak to some of the financial planning? What are some of the specific resources that individuals with Parkinson's and their families can really safeguard their assets, manage their bills, prevent any financial exploitations?
Yes, I started to touch on this earlier, and your assets are what you use for your care. So it's very important to protect those and secure those. And if you're faced with a significant medical challenge, your financial advisor should be aware of it, your attorney should be aware of it, your accountant should be aware of it, et cetera, so they can best position you to go through what you're about to go through. Financially, it's very important to have a durable power of attorney. In our what we do, and we advocate for people, and we have nurses, 5 registered nurses, but the first question we ask, and most important question, is, do you have a power of attorney? We don't provide power of attorneys. I'm not a lawyer. I don't write them up. I'm just suggesting people need to get them. They're very important. So typically, we run into a husband and wife that maybe are each other's power of attorney, which is typical, but the successor to the one that may go first, usually it's the man, the successor is maybe a brother or sister of the couple who may be 10 years older or may have already passed. So it's really important that while you're not under extreme duress, you set up a succession for if something happens to me, who's going to take care of my husband who's suffering from Parkinson's, or vice versa? If something happens to the husband, who's going to be my backup that's going to be able to pay my bills, step in and take care of legal matters, sell my home if I need to do that? And that has to be a trusted person. And sometimes that's hard to find, but it's really important to give that some thought now. The other side of that is the healthcare power of attorney, which obviously that person is in charge of making decisions if you cannot make decisions, and they're supposed to make those decisions as you would have made them. If you can still blink your eyes once for yes, twice for no, you're still in charge. But it's good to have, again, a succession of people who can make those decisions. Most people think about that side of it. They think of the will and but these are the things that while you're alive, healthcare and a durable are some of your most important people to have lined up now, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And they too can look out for any type of financial fraud. They can sort of help oversee things. And the sooner you get somebody on board, they're not taking over anything. They're just in the background, but you already have somebody in place. So I can't stress that enough.
So Bob, just to kind of summarize, what are some of the specific things that someone should consider when doing long-term planning?
Taking a look at your estate plan, which would be your power of attorney, healthcare durable, and your will or trust, and make sure you and your spouse or partner or your family understand exactly what's said in that plan and what that really means, because there may be a point down the road, whether it's from Parkinson's or something else, where you might not be able to have the ability to make changes to that. Or your spouse, something could happen and he or she may not have the ability to make changes to that plan. So now is better than later to make changes to that plan. The other thing is to discuss and have a frank discussion with each other about what you anticipate down the road and what this looks like and what I want for my care. And maybe spend some time going through the 5 wishes. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that documents, but we can send them out to people. But it's what you want. If you cannot communicate at any point in your life what you want your loved one to know about you and how you want them to take care of you. And be thoughtful and honest about this. It's a tough conversation to have with your spouse, but it's time to have that conversation. I mean, we help to facilitate that conversation. It's easier for us because we're not a family member, but that's a really important conversation to have. And it's also important to have a conversation about your final arrangements. Suppose something happens and your spouse is so upset, and then all of a sudden maybe they didn't know what to do, and then they're scrambling. Get it taken care of ahead of time. All these things, again, go back to you maintaining your independence and control. Even if you lose it, you've already cast it, and others can help carry that out.
Yeah, that's a great point, keeping that independence. So Rhonda, I'm so excited. I have to confess that I really am not familiar with the Low Country Council of Governments, which is really just the area agency of aging. I'm familiar with that, but I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about what the resources are for our folks here in the Low Country. So specific to, of course, the Family Caregiver Support Program, can you really kind of tell us a little bit about how that can assist individuals with Parkinson's?
So the Family Caregiver Support Program is actually a program that assists the caregiver, the person, usually the family member, who is in desperate need of a break from providing care. And so earlier they were up here and they were talking about what does that look like, right? Well, what we do is we provide a reimbursable mini grant to the caregiver, and we allow them to get a break through that mini grant. They will pay for the services for somebody to come out and sit with their loved one. That could look different for everyone, right? Not everybody needs the same type of service. Not everybody needs, somebody to actually bathe them and dress them and feed them. Sometimes they just need somebody to be there to say, hey, did you take your medicine? Just to help with them. Maybe make a meal. But the caregiver will take this grant and they will pay for somebody to come in to provide those services so that they can get a break, so that they themselves can take care of their own needs. Because remember, caregivers, it is important to take care of yourselves. You cannot take care of someone else if you are not even on the list of important things to do. You are important also. So that's a really important thing to remember. And we're able to give that grant to caregivers. It is short-term temporary, so it's not ongoing. When the caregiver is enrolled, they would have 90 days from date of enrollment to utilize the grant, and then they can apply for that grant once in a physical year. So that's a really important thing for them to know, is that you matter also. You're out here and you're doing the work also, and you're not alone.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, I was actually a caregiver for about 5 years, not for someone with Parkinson's, but for someone that was a traumatic brain injury. And I just would encourage you as well, for all the caregivers in the room, you are absolutely important too, and it is important to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of your loved one. So definitely great points to make, Rhonda. So tell me a little bit about, the actual specific information that the folks, we can get them connected to the resources in the community, such as support groups and things like that. How can we get these folks connected?
Can you hear me? We have got an information and referral specialist, and actually every person that works at the area agency on aging is an information referral specialist. And so when you call, let's say that you're looking for a support group, for that matter, we can help find a support group that would be unique to you and what your challenges might be. So sometimes support groups are great for folks to actually go and be at a physical location for that support group. But it's not always feasible, right? If you're a caregiver, sometimes you can't leave the person that you're providing care to alone. So we do also have some support groups that are virtual. Actually, I have two separate support groups. One is Tea Time for Caregivers. We do meet virtually the third Tuesday of the month from 2 to 3:30. And that is not a disease-specific support group, but it is specific to the caregiver. So we do talk about a lot of behaviors. We do talk about a lot of things. It is a caregiver-driven discussion, so it's always going to be about whatever the folks in the support group want to talk about. The beauty in having a virtual support group is that you can attend while your loved one is still there, and you're not having to find somebody to take care of them or to sit with them so that you can attend that group. Also, I do have a support group on the second Thursday of the month. It is from 4 to 5:30, and it is specific to somebody who is caring. It is a male support group, I should say that. It is Thursday Thoughts with the guys, and it is specific to caregivers who are male who are providing care to somebody that has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or any dementia, so somebody with a cognitive decline.
That's great. Yes, support groups are absolutely just imperative. Just curious, how many here are a part of support groups? We're pretty lucky. We have a lot of support groups in our area. How many support group attendees? Okay, well, we have a lot that are not a part of support groups. So we do have a lot in our area. Actually, I think we have one. We have a Parkinson specific at Encompass Health as well. So I just encourage you to get plugged in, look to those people that raise their hands, get to know what those resources are available. Just having that camaraderie together, learning from each other is so important with support groups. So I encourage you. So just one last quick thing, Rhonda, as we wrap up. Healthcare insurance is definitely something that can be challenging to navigate through, right? We all know that. We're all in healthcare here, and trying to really understand what some of the benefits that we might have available to us as we need them through the progression. So, Rhonda, will you tell us a little bit about the insurance counseling program that's available?
Yes, that is a SHIP counselor, and her name is Daisha Hicks. I don't know if you guys have ever met her, but she is a wonderful person, and she has just a lot of energy. But her entire job is to provide Medicare counseling, right? And the beauty of getting Medicare counseling is any person who receives Medicare would benefit from that counseling. What it does is it allows you to make informed decisions about what's best for your care. And she's able to provide you that information and kind of walk you through it. It is so very imperative because, especially like with the folks here today, with Parkinson's, if you wanted to get a treatment in a different state, you would not want to be in a Medicare Advantage plan. That would not work for you, right? So it would be very important to be able to get that Medicare counseling so that you know that whatever decisions you're making are wise decisions for you and for your loved one.
Great topics. We hope that you have enjoyed this panel. We want to hear from you. If you have any questions, please raise your hands. We're going to get some microphones to you, and then we'll look to our watch party. We have one here already.
Thank you, and I want to remind you that everyone's going to be here while you're eating lunch, so you can go up to them and ask questions. I saw a hand here.
Thank you so much. Ellen, question is to you. How does one access each of those services? Do you need a doctor's prescription? Can we come to you? How do we do it?
I love the enthusiasm, first of all. So, yeah, let me speak a little bit more to that. So, if you need speech therapy for whatever reason, if it's communication, voice, swallow, we're a jack of all trades, we do those three things, you do need a physician order. So if you're at home and you're healthy and you're doing well, you know, you may speak with your neurologist, your primary care doctor. Hey, I've noticed some changes, you know, do you know a good speech therapist around here? It could be, you know, the doctor says maybe go home, you know, a home health person come to you, that's a speech therapist. It could be an outpatient clinic. There's also university clinics. Actually, there's one around here who offers free, everyone heard that word, speech therapy. We can talk more about that, you know, afterwards. And then, of course, our level of care as a rehab hospital, you would need a medical need to be, you know, one of my patients, a short-term, you know, rehab stay. But that's kind of how the process works. So, yeah, good question.
Anyone else? Any more questions? Oh, we have one over here to the right. All right. That's Art. I met Art at another event.
Not everybody is qualified to be a caregiver for the person we're talking about, to the care receiver. And how do we recognize that that person is not qualified to be our caregiver?
That's a really good question. And hard to answer, I guess, for all of us. Look at us looking at each other. But, you know, if it's someone that you want to hire, a caregiving company or organization, again, I always tell the patients I see to ask your physician. You know, who do they recommend? You know, when you call places around, ask them, you know, do you care for people who have Parkinson's, right? Do they have a knowledge of that? Is there a certain amount of hours you need or that they require? You know, those kind of functional questions. Are they trained in CPR? You know, like what your safety, you know, questions are would be kind of where I'd start.
And I would add that when you're talking with a group that provides home care, if you express your needs to them, they should try to match you up with somebody with a similar background that has had that kind of experience, whether they cared for somebody with Parkinson's before or they cared with somebody with a stroke before. Not everybody does, but the better ones will try to match you up with somebody that has that experience.
And, you know, just actually, you know, therapy, couples therapy. I mean, this is a really challenging thing to go through anyway. And having, you know, a third party to assist you with some of those challenging conversations can be important. Your physician would be really good at that because your physician would be able to, not to do the couples therapy necessarily, but just to bring up some of the questions that are going to be important when it comes to your care. But, you know, something else, again, like I said, just the therapy to be able, because those are hard conversations to have, right? Those are challenging. All right. Are we ready to wrap it up? Well, man, you guys have been such a great crowd today. Can you give our panelists a round of applause?
And I want to just end it by saying thank you to everyone, the panelists, they're all here. And for those of you that stuck it out, we have a great lunch. The one thing regarding care, you know, we talk about doctors. There you are. I think it's Art. You said it was the name Art. The one thing I recommend, support groups and Rocksteady Boxing.